Agents of fortune. Blast off.
The following program is intended for mature audiences.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Captain, incoming message.
People of Earth, attention. People of Earth, attention. This is a voice speaking to you from thousands of miles beyond your planet. And you're listening to the Martian Revelation. Strap in tight.
Go to www.thefacesofmars.com. That's www.thefacesofmars.com.
According to a new report in the New York Times, the U.S. government may have physical evidence of, and we're quoting, off-world vehicles not made on this Earth.
In 1962, when America needed a man to board a rocket, launch into space, and orbit the Earth for the first time, we called on a Marine, the one and only John Glenn.
So let me get this queued up and we'll be ready to go, okay?
Sounds great.
Fraser, what are you doing here?
Roz, I'm just observing. If you want me to go, I will. But you have to admit this is sort of a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Fine, but no talking. Okay, Senator, we're rolling.
Okay, Roz, I have an idea if you're interested.
Sure.
I heard the nicest story about a Seattle man who took his two sons up on the roof of the house to try and see my Mercury spacecraft come over.
I love that.
Yeah, well, I thought you'd like that one. And then if we could get some of the old mission broadcasts, maybe we could use those for background.
Definitely. You are full of great ideas.
No, I'm full of good ideas.
Fraser, what are you doing?
Roz, you just agreed to two of my suggestions, which proves your problem is with me and not with them.
I'm so sorry. Fraser, get out!
Roz, it's all right. The senator and I are old friends. I took the liberty of running a few irresistible ideas by him so that I could prove my point and let you come clean.
That's not what you told me. You used me.
I'm sorry, Senator, but if I used you, it was only as the swift and terrible sword of justice.
It's terrible, all right, and outrageous. You said these were your ideas. Why'd you do it, Senator Glenn?
I was misled, and I feel awful, and you know, it's not like me to be that underhanded.
Oh, it's all right. Fraser, get in my boot. I am so sorry, Senator Glenn.
Well, I'm the one that's sorry. It's my nature to be honest, and
Now listen up, Roz. I'm going to tell you what I did this for.
Back in those glory days, I was very uncomfortable when they asked us to say things that I didn't want to say and deny other things.
I am so mad at you, Fraser.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm mad too, so just bring it on.
Some people ask, were you alone out there? We never gave the real answer, and yet we've seen things out there, strange things.
This is my project, and I asked you not to try to take control, and now you've gone behind my back and done just that.
But Roger didn't even give me a fair shake.
Well, if I didn't, it was because I was trying to protect myself, because you can be so bossy sometimes.
But we know what we saw out there, and we couldn't really say anything, and the bosses were scared of this. They were afraid of war of the worlds type stuff and about panic in the streets, and so we had to keep quiet. And now we only see these things in our nightmares or maybe in the movies, and some of them are pretty close to being the truth.
All right, Roz. I'll admit that maybe I was being a little too assertive, all right? But the least you could do is admit that perhaps you were a bit defensive.
Well, maybe you're right. But it was because I was trying to prove that I could do this on my own. So I was shutting you out. I admit it. It was unfair, and I apologize.
I accept it. Oh, Roz, come on. Our friendship is much more important to me than this documentary.
Oh, it is to me, too, Fraser.
Look, about what I just said out there, can we just keep that between us?
Oh, of course, Senator.
Good. Well, oh, wait. You were recording all that?
Well, yeah, but that's okay. We've got plenty of tape.
I'm going to need that tape.
He's a little tightly wound.
Looks like maybe somebody should cut back on the old tang.
There's a lot of interest in the people coming from space,
Yes.
And I know you're interested in that.
Oh, very interested in that. How much did they tell you about that?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah.
What did they tell you? How much can you tell?
So
how's that work? Is it like super top secret?
I can tell,
Tell me.
Well, based on Hunter Biden, I can say whatever the hell I want, right? But I interviewed a few people. It's never been my thing, I have to be honest. I have never been a believer. I have people that Area 51 or whatever it is. I think it's the #1 tourist attraction in the whole country or something. Area 51 in Las Vegas. Do you know that, right?
Sure. I know what it is.
So anyway, but it's a big tourist thing. So I interviewed jet pilots that say they saw something. If you saw them, you'd love to have them as your
I've had a
son.
couple in here. Commander David Fravor.
Yeah.
I had him in, who had that sighting in 2004. Very compelling with video evidence, radar evidence. Ryan Graves.
I don't believe his name, but I interviewed jet pilots that were solid people. Perfect. I mean, great pilots, great everything. And they said, we saw things, sir, that were very strange. Like a round ball, but it wasn't a comet or a meteor. It was something. And it was going 4 times faster than an F-22, which is a very fast plane, And it was round, which is, in theory, a great shape.
So when you were talking to these people, was this something that you were compelled to have conversations about? Was this your personal interest?
No, a little bit. It's not a great interest for me, but it's a little interest. I get that question as much as almost any question. Do you think that we have aliens coming, flying around or whatever?
What do you think?
There's no reason not to. I mean, there's no reason not to think that Mars and all these planets don't have life.
Surely the days of the great Martian revelation are upon us.
And we will put American boots on the face of Mars.
magic only truly exists in one place, the human mind. None of this stuff is real, and none of it works.
Life will never be the same. Life will never be the same.
Oh, indeed, life will never be the same. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all you ETs out there on the bite waves of the internet, and wherever you're at down through time monitoring this show. I'm Gary Lashia, the Mars Revealer, known also as the Mad Martian, and I would like to welcome you all to the Martian revelation that is upon you all again now. Welcome to the Bazaar. Today is November 16th of 2024, and you're listening to this broadcast through the Martian Revelation Show YouTube stream live at
www.thefacesofmars.com. That's www.thefacesofmars.com.
That's right, and we got quite an interesting show for you all tonight. Many people know about it, but yet many people are not knowing about it by all the other distractions and all the great things going on there in the world and national shaping of events that are occurring right now for when we are going to get into this UAP UFO hearing that took place just a few days ago on the 13th, chaired by Nancy Mace. And in essence, it was really like a hearing continuing on from last year's, where we seen David Grush, Fravor, and the others there that were also being talked about, where it was acknowledged that we do have retrieved crafts, whether crashed or otherwise, with biologics inside, non-human biologics, meaning non-human bodies.
Okay. You've stated that the government is in possession of potentially non-human spacecraft. Based on your experience and extensive conversations with experts, do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
You know what I'm saying? So that was stated out clear. The continuation goes on from that, and just like last year, we had Stephen Bassett on for that. We're going to have him on again this night to talk about this hearing, as he was in the room himself, and there's a lot going on in regards to this, and we'd like to know his political mindset of where this is going and what has transpired of where we are going here now. Regards to this all stepping stone to the ultimate day of alien entity coming to the microphone to talk to all the world for actual physical contact and communication, introduction. Has potential, but it depends what we're all dealing with. So we're going to have him back. So just like last year, we're going to play the file for you. We're going to play the hearing for you all and go through it. It's about 2 hours long, 2 hours, 10 minutes. It has its boring points, its boring parts, but however, follow it closely, because this is real important stuff, and the reality is you're walking away with, despite what I feel about this hearing, it's still etched in stone as it was. We have off-world craft that are being back-engineered or whatnot, and we have off-world biologics. We are not alone. I mean, that's the ultimate, in-your-face reality that we're coming out with without being given any type of physical evidence of the crafts or any of the biologics or any images thereof. Remember, this all stems forth from images and videos of which was provided for the hearing last year. So we're not going to be really seeing any images or anything, but it is important for many of these questions to be asked. But again, I'm jumping ahead. So that's what we're going to get into. And I'd like to say, I'm glad to say that my book, The Faces of Mars, Beyond Mere Tricks of Light and Shadow, Book 1, is almost complete. So It's been the past few weeks of trying hell for me. I had to put a lot of things on the side because, you know, I'm a grower out here, and it takes me a couple of weeks to harvest this and trim everything up myself. So, you know, but I need that good in plenties, especially to be able to keep coming back here and helping usher in the Martian revelation, delivering you all to a point in time to where it's not of my own footsteps, my own making, of where we are all being led to a point in the future when the Martian revelation is going to be a much more impactful meaning than just the name of a show or the host of an individual, which I am a part of. I have to have faith and believe, I'm told. Crazy! But we'll see where that goes. So the book's almost complete, so, and it's awesome because now I'm feeling more excited and more optimistic. As you all know, President Trump had won the election. And lo and behold, look who he has by his side, Elon Musk, who's building those big effing rockets to get us off this planet and on the Mars. Remember, people say, oh, we should go to the moon first, establish a base on the moon first. Bullshit. We could do both simultaneously, but we do not need to focus on the moon in order to hinder our travel and what we want to do at Mars. Mars is the main goal for many reasons, but especially to his plan to colonize Mars. Now,
I get that question as much as almost any question. Do you think that we have aliens coming, flying around or whatever?
What do you think?
There's no reason not to. I mean, there's no reason not to think that Mars and all these planets don't have life.
Again, listeners to this show could appreciate the reasons why. And there are those, who like to scoff and think that this is all a joke, but yet the reality is of which we are dealing with the situation in this show. Again, that we're focusing on where disclosure and the process thereof and the people's lives involved, and especially like Stephen Bassett, who will be on later on, has been fighting for and trying to help bring about the disclosure of all of this to the public. So I don't want to give synopsis right now of the video that we're going to watch. Again, many people didn't watch it, but it's out there. It made the headlines. And again, I'm not going to say anything more about it until after the fact. I got a couple news articles to read after the video, so that'll be the way to go. But now, I'm more optimistic now because of what's coming together and what needs to happen. We're taking our country back. As I've been saying, we have to take our country back. We have to secure this country, and then we have to secure low Earth orbit, and then we have to go outward and secure that. And obviously with the Space Force comes in to all of this bigger picture of where we are going and where we are needing to go and how things are shaping up and how humanity must adapt for us to inherit the stars as it was. We have to adapt to the knowledge of the realities of what's coming to Earth, let alone what's in our own fucking solar system, and especially of what's on Mars and potentially in those subsurface illegals. Maybe they need some freedom. But anyway, so as this book gets completed, there'll be more shows coming and everything. I'll have more time. There's a lot of things going on. I just put down one of my doggies yesterday, so I'm incredibly upset about that. But the show must go on and needs to be marked and noted, especially when crucial times in history are upon us. Again, that is going unbeknownst behind the scenes, especially by the fucking propaganda-controlled commie network news corporations and all that shit that you may watch TV and still consider them as real news, and they're not. We are the media now. We are the news now. And that's the real, and they want to shut us all up, just like they want to shut all the truths up of regards to these UFOs. Yes, that's what they really are. That's still, nothing has changed from them to now, to call them now UAPs, after the stigma in place put by those in control of this shit has done to the public, and now they want us to safely transfer with utmost eyes of respect and dignity to those who fucking kept this shit with us, to change the name from UFOs to UAPs. Well, I'm not playing that game. Who gives a shit? It's all the same thing. You want to say UAP? Go ahead. You want to say UFO? Go ahead. That's where, a lot of old school OGs had fought blood and died for under those investigations. What happened to them and their work? Oh, they're overlooked now to be more respectable to those who changed the name, who have been behind the control of this shit for all these decades? I don't think so. But that's my freedom of speech, my freedom of thought to do so. That they want to censor from us all of being able to speak or ask questions about. Sorry, that bullshit ain't happening. Anyway. So again, quite an exciting time. We're getting reaffirmations, but again, what you're gonna see, it could be on the boring side. Just follow it along. There'll be no spectacular fucking whoop-de-doo moments that many people who were watching would be expecting to see. And I'm also one of them. I would love to see some material. I would love to hear people talk about things more. Claiming to be about bringing the people the truth and shit. And everyone must shut their mouths and talk behind closed doors out of the public purview. Get the fuck out of here. Grow some balls. Or bring something to the table. And this is beyond, okay, I know a lot of things. Yeah, I'm going to go there all amped up. Yeah, I'm the man. And then fucking, I can't say nothing here. I got to talk to you behind the skiff about that. How's that bringing truth to the American people? It's just showing that you motherfuckers got things to hide. Based on your experiences in your life, you're not willing to tell the public because you are in support of those controlling this shit, and you're more afraid of them than we the people, and especially of Congress. Prove me wrong. That's all I'll say. Again, I have some feelings about this, my right to it. This is about getting the truth, and again, those who bled, fought, and died in the past and are still alive, bleeding and fighting for us all to get us these disclosures. That's where Stephen Bassett will come in later and chime in with us of what's going on with all this bullshit. Because to me, that's what it is bullshit. This bullshit is just another reaffirmation to the public, though, yes, these craft are real. UFOs are real. We have, whether they're crashed, retrieved, or shot down, it doesn't matter. We got them. We got the pilots. They're non-human. All right, otherworldly technology. That is the hard-hitting disclosure by vocality of both the people asking the questions, especially as the witnesses. Except for maybe one during this one, it makes you then wonder what the fuck is he really there for. But, I guess it's another seated opinion. Without any evidences or any discussions out in the open that can be discussed about without being in a skiff away from the public to hear us or see about, this is bullshit, okay? Transparency is about transparency. They work for us. We want the answers. We want the questions to be presented and what needs to be asked and presented. Do you understand? Well, that being said, again, I'm ranting on about something that's just taking time away from us all to watch this video of the hearing from the 13th the other day, again, chaired by Nancy Mace. So they're going to have Louis Elizondo, Rear Admiral Dr. Gaudet, Michael Schellenberger, as well as Michael Gold, who's really just basically a NASA pusher in there to try to beg for fucking money and put their foot in to help the American people, to help by all the data. No, they're just seeking fucking money. And again, I got words later in regards about NASA. And, putting them in the lead of any type of anomalies. Especially when you all read The Faces of Mars Beyond Mere Tricks of Light and Shadow. Look at what they have done regards to the face of Cydonia. Yet you want to trust them with this shit? Leading the way, pioneering to get us information? Get the fuck out of here. Again. There's a new sheriff in town, and there's a new time coming for America that's going to be transformed. And it ain't going to be led by NASA. I'll say that right now. Not in the way that it is, and controlled by, and how they had steered to even destroy themselves in our national prestige and our national space program. Look, again, we are in a new day now. Life is never going to be the same. Life's not going to be the same. So, Elon Musk, the big effing rockets, Donald Trump. Think about the potential. Think about the reality of what Donald Trump wanted in his first fucking term about giving NASA unlimited amount of money if they could say, yeah, they could get us to Mars. Oh, no. Elon Musk is saying, shit, let's go. I'm building it now. Help me. You get it? Where these guys are trying to shut them down, NASA and these other old school commie control corporate enemies of the people who have ruled as the old guard and all this shit. Their days are done. Now we the people have a different path to go on. One that's not just going to make America great again, but that's going to shape America in the greatness of what's to come, to lead the world, especially in space. So, that being said, I ranted enough. Let's watch this video. And, Mean Green, let's go, brother.
Good evening. The following newscast is of utmost importance to the
Joint hearing of the Subcommittee on Cybersecurity, Information Technology, and Government Innovation and the Subcommittee on National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs will come to order. Good morning and welcome, everyone. Without objection, the chair may declare a recess at any time, and I recognize myself for the purpose of making an opening statement right now. Good morning and welcome to today's historic hearing, which I'm co-chairing with Mr. Grothman, whose subcommittee held an important hearing on this topic last year. I want to thank my colleagues on the Oversight Committee, including Mr. Burchett, Mr. Burleson, Ms. Luna, Mr. Moskowitz, Mr. Garcia, for their relentless drive to get answers on UAPs. They've been steadfast in demanding transparency on the sightings reported by military pilots and armed forces. Their commitment to digging for the truth is exactly what this country needs to cut through the secrecy surrounding this issue. And many high-ranking individuals in the military and intelligence communities believe UAPs demand greater attention, and thus the purpose for this hearing today. Former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster said on Bill Maher's program that, quote, there are phenomena that have been witnessed by multiple people that are just inexplicable by the science available to us. Army Colonel Carl Nell, a member of the federal government UAP task force, said at a conference this past May that non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing, and there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that. But UAPs remain a controversial topic. I'm not going to name names, but there are certain individuals who didn't want this hearing to happen because they feared what might be disclosed. But we stood firm. No amount of outside pressure would ever keep me from pursuing a subject to ground, come hell or high water. On that score, I want to thank our witnesses for being here. We have before us a panel of individuals accomplished in the military, in civilian government, in science, and in journalism. Some of the testimony you will hear them deliver today does not reflect well on influential individuals and agencies within the U.S. federal government and perhaps some of our contractors. It's never easy to present such information publicly. So I appreciate our witnesses voluntarily agreeing to being here today. This hearing is intended to help Congress and the American people to learn the extent of the programs and activities our government has engaged in with respect to UAPs and what knowledge it has yielded. This includes, of course, any knowledge of extraterrestrial life or technology of non-human origin. If government-funded research on UAPs has not yielded any useful knowledge, we also need to know those facts. Taxpayers deserve to know how much has it been invested, how much has been spent. They shouldn't be kept in the dark to spare the Pentagon a little bit of embarrassment. The reality is, despite their enormous taxpayer-funded budgets, the transparency of the Defense Department and the intelligence community have long been abysmal. The Pentagon has failed 6 consecutive audits. In fact, it's never actually passed one. Adding to this is a runaway overclassification of documents and materials, a reluctance to declassify materials when appropriate, and at times an outright refusal to share critical information with Congress. In short, It's not a track record that instills trust. So Congress has tried in recent years to lift the veil and find out if information about UAPs is being withheld, not only from the American public, but also from their elected representatives in Congress. Part of the transparency effort was legislation created in the Pentagon, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, but the new office is struggling to get its footing. A recent statutorily required report from AARO, intended to illuminate the government's historic assessment of UAPs, was heavily criticized by those seeking UAP transparency. The report has stoked suspicions AARO is unable, or perhaps unwilling, to bring forward the truth about the government's activities concerning UAPs. I'm disturbed that AARO itself lacks transparency. Even its budget is kept from the public. So if there is no there, then why are we spending money on it, and by how much? Why the secrecy if it's really no big deal and there's nothing there? Why hide it from the American people? Because I'm not a mathematician, but I can tell you that doesn't add up. I expect some of our witnesses to share their views on that AARO report. We will also hear from the witnesses today allegations of UAP-related misinformation and disinformation by government officials of which they are personally aware and directly experienced. And we will hear testimony today concerning recent revelations about a purportedly secret UAP program whose existence and findings may have been improperly withheld from Congress. But before we get to the witnesses, we're going to have a few more opening statements from our colleagues. And one thing I wanted to add at the end of my closing statement is there is a document that will be entered into the congressional record today. Mr. Tim Burchett from Tennessee has this document, and we just distributed it to every member up here on the dais of this document. But this is going to be the original document from the Pentagon about Immaculate Constellation that Michael Schellenberger delivered to Congress today. So thank you, Mr. Schellenberger, for this information. We are all reading it in real time now, and Mr. Burchett will enter it into the record. But 12 pages about this unacknowledged special access program that your government says does not exist. So with that, I would acknowledge my colleagues, Mr. Garcia. I want to say, first of all, to Mr. Connolly, who cannot be here today, the ranking member on my subcommittee on cybersecurity, I want to say that I was greatly saddened to hear about the recent news of Mr. Connolly's cancer diagnosis, and I want to convey to him and to all of our colleagues, we wish our very best to you in a full and speedy recovery. And with that, I would acknowledge Mr. Garcia for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairwoman. I want to thank the Chairwoman and the Chairman both for their continued support and really treating this discussion and these hearings in a way that's bipartisan. I think one thing that's very important for all of us that are interested in the conversation around UAPs is that this is an area that both Republicans and Democrats, where we may disagree in a lot of other spaces, this is an area where bipartisanship is really important. And in fact, I would add it's critical that we all continue to work together in a way that moves forward with the truth and important disclosure. So we're here to have a bipartisan and serious conversation, I believe, about our national security. We should always ground these conversations in facts, evidence, and the data in front of us. I want to note that we have our witnesses here. I want to thank you all for being here, and note that also amongst you have folks that have also served us in our military. And I know that for many of you this has been a difficult process, but I'm very grateful to have you with us today, and thank you for joining us. I also want to note that today's hearing builds on a quite, I think, also historic public hearing that we had many months ago that Mr. Grothman and others helped lead in this very same hearing room, where I believe we began a really important public conversation about UAPs. And so I want to thank him for that, and I especially want to thank Chairwoman Mays for her continued advocacy on this topic. I also want to start with some facts. We know that there are objects or phenomena observed in our airspace, as our witnesses will testify, and also possibly in our oceans. In many cases, we don't know what they are, and this is, of course, why we're discussing UAPs. Now, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, has reported hundreds of UAPs that remain, quote, uncharacterized and unattributed, and which, quote, appear to have demonstrated unusual flight characteristics or performance capabilities and require further analysis. This is our own Aero office. Now, we shouldn't prejudge what they might be. I'm certainly not going to. We need evidence. But what we are detecting things, and we know that we don't understand them, and this is worth investigating. Now, the American people have legitimate questions, and I believe it's critical that Congress should help address them. This is about the truth and science and facts. Now, transparency and faith in our institutions is vital in a good democracy. Now, I'm proud to say that this hearing will build on that important bipartisan work, and I want to thank everyone for being involved, including members of our committee. Now, in our last hearing in July, we heard testimony that a significant number of pilots of major airlines have witnessed UAPs as well, but have no real confidential way of reporting them to the government. We heard that commercial pilots who encounter UAPs may be hesitant to speak openly due to stigma or fear of retaliation. We also know that Aero has reported that, and I want to quote, that most reports still reflect a bias towards restricted military airspace, a result of reporting from military personnel and sensors present in such areas. And so the lack of ability for civilian pilots raises real safety concerns and limits our ability to understand UAPs. This is a particular piece of this conversation that I am very interested in. Now, our last hearing inspired us to introduce the Safe Airspace for Americans Act, joined by Chairman Grothman, Chairwoman Mace, and a bipartisan group of co-sponsors. I see some of our leaders from Safe Airspace for Americans Act here, and that would create a safe reporting for UAP process, which we want to continue to do. Now, members of both parties and senior officials in multiple administrations have now taken an interest in this issue. Mainstream media, in many cases, are beginning to take more of an interest in this issue, and we should all be proud to carry that work and build confidence for the American people. I believe we can always be more transparent. To me, this hearing and others are simply about the truth and getting to the facts of what these UAPs actually are. It's very important that we show that Democrats and Republicans in Congress can work together to cut through misinformation and look for a serious and thoughtful way to have the discussion in public. Many of us have also called for additional public hearings to discuss UAPs. This should be a topic that continues on throughout the Congress so that we can gather more information, data, and work with the relevant agencies to gather more information. Finally, I just want to add that those that are here on this dais, many of us have participated also in classified briefings as well, and where we have also gained a lot of important, I think, and interesting information, at least I personally have. And so with that information, we want to continue today's hearing, and I thank all of our witnesses for being here. And with that, I'd like to yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. And I'd now like to recognize Mr. Grothman for a 5-minute introduction.
Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to thank our witnesses for being here one more time. This is a topic I've been interested in since 8th grade. I'd like to thank Ms. Mace for working with me on this topic and for making this a joint subcommittee hearing. Last year, the Subcommittee on National Security, the Border and Foreign Affairs held an historic hearing to understand the potential national security risk of unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. We heard from former Navy Commander David Fravor, who shared firsthand experience with a UAP he engaged while on duty in the Pacific. We learned from David Gresh, a former member of the intelligence community, who revealed the supposed existence of secret government programs hidden from congressional oversight. Additionally, former military pilot Ryan Graves informed us of the limited ways in which the military and commercial pilots can report UAP sightings. Since that last hearings, I've led several briefings with government agencies to deepen my understanding with these issues. First, the Department of Defense Inspector General's Office informed us that the Department of Defense does not have a streamlined process for service members to report UAP activity. Since then, the Joint Chiefs have implemented standards for UAP reporting across the services. The Intelligence Community Inspector General informed us that whistleblowers often fear retaliation for reporting mismanagement of highly sensitive government projects or information. Finally, AARO has expressed to the committee that, like any other federal government agency, it's faced challenges in its establishment, specifically in hiring staff to manage UAP historical records and coordinating with other federal agencies. While these agencies have been helpful to us in understanding the challenges that come from collecting UAP data, none of them have been able to substantiate the claims made at this hearing last year by David Grush. Despite our committee members endlessly questioning these agencies inside and outside of a SCIF, I hope our witnesses today will be able to provide evidence and content that is worthwhile to our pursuits of eliminating government waste and increasing transparency. To help alleviate some of the roadblocks, I'm supportive of measures that were included in last year's National Defense Authorization Act to increase transparency and improve record-keeping measures when it comes to UAPs. But I believe there's still more work to go. I co-led the Safe Airspace for Americans Act with Ranking Member Garcia, which requires the Federal Aviation Administration to develop procedures to collect UAP data from civilian aviators. I look forward to working with members of Congress to see that this legislation and other UAP legislation crosses the finish line. I'm deeply alarmed by the reporting of the massive drone swarm that flew over Langley Air Force Base in Virginia last December. Langley is the home of the 1st Fighter Wing, which maintains half of the F-22s in the U.S. Air Force inventory. Reports of this incident indicate these drones were roughly 20 feet long, flying more than 100 miles an hour at an altitude of over 3,000 feet. Yet the origin of these drones and their operators remains a mystery. This incident and other sightings near sensitive military installations highlights the complexity of the UAP challenge facing our intelligence, defense, and homeland security committees. Whether these phenomena are the result of foreign adversaries developing advanced technologies or something else entirely, we must take them seriously, investigate them thoroughly, and assess their implications on national defense. The repeated UAP sightings around sensitive military sites underscores the need for innovative defensive strategies beyond traditional measures. They also highlight the urgent need for updated policies to address emerging threats as well as more effective interagency cooperation and intelligence sharing. However, none of this is going to be possible without transparency. For far too long, critical information about UAPs has been either classified or ignored, leaving the American public and key congressmen without clarity needed to make informed decisions. Declassifying reports and fostering a more open dialogue about UAPs will not only increase the public trust, but also encourage collaboration between government, the scientific community, and our allies. Quite frankly, there's been things that have been kept secret that is, I think, old enough that there is no reason it shouldn't be released, regardless of any so-called, private information. A transparent approach will allow us to share insights, identify patterns, and develop new strategic defenses. As we continue to investigate these phenomena, we must do so with a mindset of protecting our country, advancing scientific discovery, and upholding the trust of the American people, who right now I don't think have trust, and it's just obvious I don't have trust. We cannot shy away from the unknown, especially when the stakes are so high. I look forward to discussing these matters with the witnesses today. I'm hopeful we can learn from the testimony and come out of this hearing with actionable ideas to advance UAP transparency. Actually, the idea is just to say, in my mind, go back 15 years and everything has to be released. I'm hopeful that we can learn from their testimony and come out of this hearing. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you. I will now recognize Mr. Moskowitz for a 5-minute introduction.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Good morning, everyone. I first want to thank the chairs and ranking members for holding the hearing today on this topic and, again, having a second hearing. I want to thank the witnesses for coming forward today to share your expertise on UAPs and the need to build trust through transparency. But first, I want to mention, you might be wondering why Chairman Comer has allowed me to be a ranking member today, but it's really only because our dear friend Jerry Connolly is not here. As Chairwoman Mace mentioned, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, and all of us on this committee know Jerry, and he's a fighter, and we're praying for him and hoping for his speedy recovery. So today's hearing marks this committee's second meeting dedicated to UAP transparency. I was pleased, as I know all of us are, on the bipartisanship that existed in last year's hearing, and even though we can't talk about what happens in the classified settings, the bipartisanship that has existed in those settings with the questions members have asked. Last year's hearing was a great example of open dialogue about UAPs, and we must remain committed to sharing information with the American people. And I think you see that commitment based on the people here and the commitment across the political spectrum. I personally have worked with multiple members of this committee, but I want to particularly thank Congressman Burchett, Mace, Luna, and Garcia for working on bipartisan pieces of legislation. In recent years, Congress has taken numerous bipartisan steps towards greater transparency. In 2022, in the NDAA, we created the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office to investigate unidentified flying objects. Following Aero, along with ODNI, released an unclassified report on UAP sightings. Of the 366 sightings included in the report, 171 remain uncharacterized, with some of these appearing to have demonstrated unusual flight characteristics or performance capabilities. That's a nice way of saying we don't want to tell you what they are. In March, Aero revealed a report on the historical record of U.S. government involvement with UAPs, which covered investigatory efforts going back from 1945 to the present day. Earlier this year, I joined Congressman Burchett to introduce the UAP Transparency Act, which would require the declassification of all documents related to UAPs with many other members of this committee. In fiscal year 2024, the NDAA required the National Archives and Records Administration to establish the Unidentified Anonymous Phenomena Records Collection. This collection will include digital copies of all unidentified UAP records that can be publicly disclosed. This commitment in transparency is vitally important, and unnecessary overclassification has led to a void of information, which has allowed theories over the decades to foster. When the American people and members of Congress ask, are reports of UAPs credible, we're met with stonewalling. We're met with responses of, I can't tell you. And in fact, we're met with people not wanting us to have hearings. We're met with people not wanting us to ask you questions. In fact, many of us were told not to ask some of you certain questions on certain topics. In a time of heightened distrust of our government institutions, I believe more transparency is not only needed but is possible. And obviously we can respect national security limits, but we also have to provide our constituents with the information and oversight that they have tasked us for. As part of this, government agencies must maintain open lines of communication with members of Congress. And there are regular questions that Americans have. What are UAPs? Are they real? Are they ours? How has this technology been developed? How do they get funded? Right? And now we've seen this has gone from a long time ago where you could discredit people because it's some guy living in a Winnebago. You're able to see people now, these are pilots, these are military, these are folks with serious backgrounds. This has changed the face of this because now we have video. People will have questions. We know there are advanced technology programs. Almost 15 years ago, one of those came out of Area 51 to go after Osama bin Laden. And the only reason we know about that is because one of those helicopters was downed. Americans have questions about whistleblowers who have come forward to talk about retribution. And so I want to thank everyone for being involved today on trying to get more transparency. This has been bipartisan, bicameral, and as we get into a new administration, the president-elect has talked about opportunities to declassify information on UAPs, and I hope he lives up to that promise. And with that, I yield back.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moskowitz. And I would now, committee staff asked me to go ahead and I will do it, to enter into the congressional record this 12-page document that Michael Schellenberger brought today that describes the Immaculate Constellation government program. So we will do that now. Every member up here has a copy of it. The first section talks about the unacknowledged special access program called Immaculate Constellation, and the second section about USG imagery intelligence. And Representative Luna just told me if I say Immaculate Constellation, I'll be on some list, maybe a FISA warrant. So come at me, bro, I guess. But without objection, entered in the record. All right, so next we will introduce our witnesses for today's hearing. Thank you so much for being here. Our first witness is retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, who retired from the U.S. Navy and is now the Chief Executive Officer at Ocean STL Consulting. Our second witness is Mr. Lou Elizondo, a former Department of Defense official and author of a recent bestseller book about UAPs. Our third witness is Mr. Michael Schellenberger, founder of the newsletter Public and author of a recent journalistic piece about special access programs, including one widely identified as Immaculate Constellation. I swear the staff wants me on a list. Okay. And our last witness today is Mr. Michael Gold, a former NASA official who is also a member of the NASA UAP Independent Study Team. Welcome, everyone. We are pleased to have you today. Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise your right hands. This is where it gets real. Do you solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that the witnesses all answered in the affirmative. We appreciate all of you being here today and look forward to your testimony. Let me remind the witnesses that we have read your written statements and they will appear in full in the hearing record. You guys may be seated. Please limit your oral statements to 5 minutes. As a reminder, please press the button in front of you so the microphone is turned on so that everyone in the room, members included, can hear you. When you begin to speak, the light in front of you will turn green. After 4 minutes, the light will turn yellow. When the red light comes on, your 5 minutes has expired, and we would ask that you please wrap it up. So I will first recognize Rear Admiral Gallaudet to please begin your opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairwoman Mace, Chairman Grothman, Ranking Members Connolly and Garcia, and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today regarding Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, or UAP. Confirmation that UAPs are real came to me in January of 2015 when I was serving as the commander of the Navy Meteorology and Oceanography Command. At the time, my personnel were participating in a pre-deployment naval exercise off the U.S. East Coast. It included the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group, and this exercise was overseen by the United States Fleet Forces Command, led by a 4-star admiral who at the time was also my superior officer. During this exercise, I received an email on Navy's secure network from the operations officer of U.S. Fleet Forces Command. The email was addressed to all the subordinate commanders, and the subject line read in all capital letters, "Urgent Safety of Flight Issue." The text of the email was brief but alarming, with words to the effect, "If any of you know what these are, tell me ASAP. We are having multiple near mid-air collisions, and if we do not resolve this soon, we are going to have to shut down the exercise." Attached to the email is what is now known as the Go Fast video, captured on the forward-looking infrared sensor of one of the Navy F-A-18 aircraft participating in the exercise. The now declassified video showed an unidentified object exhibiting flight and structural characteristics unlike anything in our arsenal. The implication of the email was clear. The author was asking whether any of the recipients were aware of classified technology demonstrations that could explain these objects. Because the DoD policy is to rigorously deconflict such demonstrations with live exercises, I was confident this was not the case. The very next day, that email disappeared from my account and those of the other recipients without explanation. Moreover, the commander of Fleet Forces Command and the operations officer never discussed the subject. Even during weekly meetings specifically designed to address issues affecting exercises like the one in which the Theodore Roosevelt Strike Group was participating. This lack of follow-up was very concerning to me. As the Navy's chief meteorologist at the time, I was responsible for reducing safety of flight risks. Yet it appeared to me that no one at the flag officer level was addressing the safety risk posed by UAPs. Instead, pilots were left to mitigate these threats on their own without guidance or support. I concluded that the UAP information must have been classified within a special access program managed by an intelligence agency. That is a compartmented program that even senior officials, including myself, were not read into. Last year's UAP hearing before this Oversight Committee confirmed that UAP-related information is being withheld from senior officials and members of Congress. And just this week, I learned from former DoD official Chris Mellon that satellite imagery of UAP from a few years ago still has not been shared with Congress. Equally concerning, last year's UAP hearing also revealed that elements of the government are engaged in a disinformation campaign to include personal attacks designed to discredit UAP whistleblowers. Having never signed a non-disclosure agreement regarding UAPs, and now as a private citizen, I've become an advocate for greater UAP transparency from the government. The continued overclassification surrounding UAPs has not only hindered our ability to effectively address these phenomena, but has also eroded trust in our institutions. While I applaud previous bipartisan legislation passed by Congress concerning UAPs, a more comprehensive approach is needed to address the broader implication of UAP on public safety and national security, as well as the socioeconomic opportunities that open UAP research could unlock. Therefore, I recommend Congress take the following action, which I believe will receive bipartisan support. First, establish robust oversight of the executive branch's management of UAP information by directing key officials, beginning with the director of the DoD's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, to provide comprehensive briefings on what the government knows about UAP and does not know. 2, enact the provisions of the UAP Disclosure Act that establish a UAP Records Review Board to ensure independent oversight, transparency, and accountability in the government's handling of UAP information. And 3, strengthen the UAP Disclosure Act and future reauthorizations with provisions that mandate a whole-of-government approach to addressing UAP. In closing, I will share my personal reasons for speaking out on this topic. First, as a former science agency leader, having led the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, I've always sought the truth in human knowledge and thought. Now that we know UAP are interacting with humanity, and these include unidentified submerged objects in the ocean, we should not turn a blind eye, but instead boldly face this new reality and learn from it. Additionally, at a time when leaders in government leave much to be desired, I feel obligated to show moral leadership on this issue of UAP disclosure by validating the credibility of the courageous men and women who have come out as witnesses and whistleblowers to expose the truth. My speaking out has encouraged others to do the same, and it's my hope over time that a number of your constituents will want to know the truth and about UAP, and this number will increase to such an extent that the congressional action I have just recommended will become inevitable. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. I will now recognize Mr. Elizondo for his opening statement.
Greetings, Chairwoman Mace, Chairman Grothman, Ranking Members Connolly and Garcia, and members of the committee. It is my honor and privilege to testify before you on the issue of unidentified anomalous phenomenon, formerly known as UFOs. On behalf of our brave men and women in uniform and across the intelligence community, as well as my fellow Americans who have awaited this day, thank you for your leadership on this important matter. Let me be clear. UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies. For many years, I was entrusted with protecting some of our nation's most sensitive programs. In my last position, I managed a special access program on behalf of the White House and the National Security Council. As such, I appreciate the need to protect certain sensitive intelligence and military information. I consider my oath to protect secrets as sacred, and I will always put the safety of the American people first. With that said, I also understand the consequences of excessive secrecy and stovepiping. Nowhere was this more apparent than in the aftermath of 9/11, which many of us remember all too well. I believe that America's greatness depends on 3 elements. A watchful Congress, B, a responsive executive branch, and C, an informed public. Over the last decade and a half, I learned that certain UAP programs were and are operating without any of these elements. Although much of my government work on the UAP subject still remains classified, excessive secrecy has led to grave misdeeds against loyal civil servants, military personnel, and the public, all to hide the fact that we are not alone in the cosmos. A small cadre within our own government involved in the UAP topic has created a culture of suppression and intimidation that I've personally been victim to, along with many of my former colleagues. This includes unwarranted criminal investigations, harassment, and efforts to destroy one's credibility. Most Americans would be shocked to learn that the Pentagon's very own Public Affairs Office openly employs a professional psychological operations officer as the singular point of contact for any UAP-related inquiries from citizens and the media. This is unacceptable. Many of my former colleagues and I have provided classified testimony to both the Department of Defense and the Intelligence Community Inspector General, and many of us have subsequently been targeted by this cabal with threats to our careers, our security clearances, and even our lives. This is not hyperbole, but a genuine fact, and this is wrong. To fix these problems, I propose three principal actions. First, Congress and the President should create a single point of contact responsible for a whole-of-government approach to the UAP issue. Currently, the White House, CIA, NASA, the Pentagon, Department of Energy, and others play a role, but no one seems to be in charge, leading to unchecked power and corruption. Second, we need a national UAP strategy that will promote transparency and help restore the American public's trust at a time when the public's trust is at an all-time low. This strategy should include a whole-of-government approach, including the academic and scientific communities, the private sector, and our international partners and allies. Third, Congress should create a protected environment so whistleblowers desperate to do the right thing can come forward without fear. As it currently stands, these whistleblowers suffer because of stigma, a code of silence, and concerns about retaliation. These whistleblowers should be encouraged to come forward in ways that protect them against any forms of retaliation. Policies and procedures should ensure that protection, and for those who refuse to cooperate, it is up to the members of this committee and the other lawmakers to wield their subpoena power against hostile witnesses and prevent additional government funding to those UAP efforts that remain hidden from congressional oversight. In closing, we as Americans have never been afraid of a challenge. In fact, we thrive on them, whether it's eradicating polio or going to the moon. We don't run from a challenge, we take it head on. To the incoming administration and Congress, I say to you, we need immediate public transparency, and this hearing is an important step on that journey. If we approach the UAP topic in the same way as we as Americans have met other challenges, we can restore our faith in our government institutions. Together, we can usher in a new era of accountable government and scientific discovery. I believe that we as Americans can handle the truth, and I also believe the world deserves the truth. Thank you, esteemed members of Congress, for your time today. It is profoundly appreciated by many.
Thank you. I ask unanimous consent for Representatives Ogles of Tennessee and Boebert of Colorado to be waived onto the subcommittee for today's joint subcommittee hearing for the purpose of asking questions. Without objection, so ordered. I would now like to recognize Mr. Schellenberger for his introductory remarks.
Chairwoman Mace, Chairman Grothman, Ranking Member Connolly, Ranking Member Garcia, members of the subcommittees, thank you for inviting my testimony. One of Congress's most important responsibilities is oversight of the executive branch in general and the military and intelligence community in particular. Unfortunately, there is a growing body of evidence that the U.S. government is not being transparent about what it knows about unidentified anomalous phenomena, and that elements within the military and the IC are in violation of their constitutional duty to notify Congress of their operations. President-elect Donald Trump and former President Barack Obama have both said that the government has information about UAPs that it has not released. There are other explanations for UAPs than that they represent a new form of life or non-human life. Current dominant alternative theories, including those put forward by AARO, are that UAPs are some kind of natural phenomena we don't yet understand, like ball lightning or plasma. They could also be part of some new U.S. or foreign government weapons programs, such as drones, aircraft, balloons, CGI, hoaxes, or birds. Whatever UAPs are, Congress must be informed, as must the people of the United States. We have a right to know what UAPs are, no matter what they are. However, we now have existing and former U.S. government officials who have told Congress that AARO and the Pentagon have broken the law by not revealing a significant body of information about UAPs, including military intelligence databases that have evidence of their existence as physical craft. One of those individuals is a current or former U.S. government official acting as a UAP whistleblower. This person has written a report. This is the report that says the executive branch has been managing UAP, NHI issues without congressional knowledge, oversight, or authorization for some time, quite possibly decades. Furthermore, these individuals have revealed the name of an active and highly secretive DoD unacknowledged special access program, or USAP. The source of that document told me, that the USAP is a strategic intelligence program that is part of the U.S. military family of long-standing, highly sensitive programs dealing with various aspects of the UAP problem. The new UAP whistleblower claims that the U.S. military and IC database includes videos and images taken using infrared, forward-looking infrared, full-motion video, and still photography. The report that was just shared with Congress says Immaculate Constellation serves as a central or parent USAP that consolidates observations of UAPs by both tasked and untasked collection platforms. Immaculate Constellation includes high-quality imagery intelligence and measurement and signature intelligence of UAPs, the whistleblowers report adds. The sources of this intelligence are a blend of directed and incidental collection capabilities, positioned in low Earth orbit, the upper atmosphere, as well as military and civilian aviation altitudes and maritime environments. The report to Congress details in detail various UAPs, including spheres, orbs, disks, saucers, ovals, triangles, boomerang, arrowhead, and irregular organic. The report describes various incidents found in the human intelligence databases. One involved orbs surrounding and forcing an F-22 out of its patrol area. In another incident, the crew of a Navy aircraft carrier watched a small orange-red sphere rapidly descend from a high altitude of 100 to 200 yards directly above the flight deck of the CVN, or aircraft carrier. And since my reporting on this Immaculate Constellation last month, another source came forward who told me that they saw a roughly 13-minute-long, high-definition, full-color video of a white orb UAP coming out of the ocean approximately 20 miles off the coast of Kuwait. It was filmed from a helicopter. Then halfway through the video, the person said the orb is joined by another orb that briefly comes into the frame from the left before rapidly moving again out of the frame. The person discovered the video on SIPR, the Secure Internet Protocol Router Network, which the DoD uses to transmit classified information. A leading UAP researcher who utilizes the Freedom of Information Act to find out what the government knows, John Greenwald, told me last year that the U.S. government had been increasingly denying his requests for UAP information. He has been doing FOIA requests for 27 years and has an archive of 3 million pages. The government has for decades denied any interest in UFOs, he told me, but the documents that he has assembled show that behind the scenes it was a completely different story. Contrary to the hopes of many advocates of transparency, the government has been restricting more information since the leak of 3 UAP videos in 2017. The DoD organization AARO has been labeling many documents with a B7 exemption, which Greenwald says does not make any sense. They're stating that anything AARO does is involved in law enforcement investigation, which allows AARO to not release it. Greenwald says that the DoD has denied the existence of a UAP and ATIP-related records on multiple occasions, only to acknowledge them after an appeal was filed. He added that the Naval Air Systems Command in March 2022 stated they found no additional UAP videos. It seemed strange that they had 3 and only those 3, but other requests had been filed by the Black Vault, that's John Greenwald's group, to seek out more places UAPs might be hiding. Then in September 2022, the Navy admitted that the UAP-related videos and photographs existed, but denied the request in full for their release, saying that the requested videos contain sensitive information that are classified and exempt from disclosure. The DoD will deny things on a Monday and then admit to it on a Friday, said Greenwald. He said the government can and does release videos that protect secret methods of capturing it. They fall back on the sensitive platform excuse a lot, he said. However, the on-screen information can be blurred and scrubbed. The metadata can be removed. I'll show you this example here. This is a presentation from the UATP task force. This is completely absurd. It's nuts, this level of censorship, of redaction on a document. It shows the redaction of how many reports they've collected, for how many years. 2 of the 3 potential explanations are blacked out. The Pentagon, the intelligence community is treating us like children. It's time for us to know the truth about this. I think that we can handle it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would now like to recognize Mr. Gold for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Mace, Chairman Grothman, Ranking Members Connolly and Garcia, Representative Moskowitz, and distinguished members of both subcommittees. I'm grateful to all of you, as well as your intrepid staff, for the opportunity to testify, and would like to begin by discussing courage. Courage is what it takes to tackle this topic, and courage in the face of adversity is what I see in front of me, beside me, and behind me. Per my introduction, I am currently the Chief Growth Officer at Redwire Space and have had several leadership positions at NASA. That being said, I want to be clear that I am speaking exclusively on my own behalf and not for Redwire, NASA, or any other organization. However, I am here today to speak out for science. Science requires data, which should be collected without bias or prejudice. Yet, whenever the topic of UAP arises, those who wish to explore the phenomena are often confronted with resistance and ridicule. For example, members of the NASA UAP Independent Study Team, particularly those in academia, were mocked and even threatened for simply having the temerity to engage in the study of UAP. Our best tool for unlocking the mystery of UAP is science, But we cannot conduct a proper inquiry if the stigma is so overwhelming that just daring to be part of a NASA research team elicits such a vitriolic response. Therefore, one of the most important actions that can be taken relative to exposing the truth of UAP is to combat the stigma. And this is where I believe that NASA can be eminently helpful. The NASA brand is synonymous with hope, optimism, and credibility. If you were to take a walk down the National Mall, you would immediately see the NASA logo on T-shirts, hats, and bumper stickers. Few federal agencies enjoy this kind of popularity. I've never seen anyone wearing an Office of Personnel Management T-shirt, which is why NASA could play such an influential role. Specifically, NASA could, with relatively little cost and effort, host symposia on UAP, or even just participate in existing panels examining the topic. NASA personnel stepping forward and participating in such discussions would make a powerful statement to the scientific community that UAP should be taken seriously and researched accordingly. In regard to research, NASA has vast archives, much of which may contain important UAP data. Again, for relatively little cost and effort, NASA could create an AI or ML algorithm that could search the agency's archives for anomalous phenomena. I suspect that such an effort would not only result in information that will help us to understand UAP, but could result in data that will assist in other areas of scientific inquiry, such as anomalous weather or meteorite activity. Beyond its existing archives, NASA could act as a clearinghouse for civilian and commercial UAP data. During my work on the UAP Independent Study Team, it quickly became evident that there is no clear or well-publicized process for civilian pilots to report UAP sightings. The stigma associated with UAP hampers the number of pilots that would report such phenomena, but even for those who overcome the stigma, I believe the current FAA guidance is largely unknown and poorly understood. In order to effectively collect UAP data, the independent study team recommended the use of NASA's Aviation Safety Reporting System, or ASRS. This system, which is administered by NASA and funded by the FAA, provides a confidential means for the reporting of safety violations in a voluntary and non-punitive manner. Over 47 years, the ASRS has collected nearly 2 million reports. ASRS is the perfect tool to collect UAP data, which could then be collated by NASA and shared with the public at large. Leveraging ASRS could create a treasure trove of UAP data, potentially hundreds of thousands of reports, supporting this hearing's goal of exposing the truth. And I'm grateful to our two co-chairs and other members who have already incorporated this idea into proposed legislation. At this hearing, and as others have demonstrated,
what about the face of Cydonia?
Justifiably dominated by national security and defense. However, I would urge the subcommittees to keep in mind the numerous ways that NASA and the FAA, as well as commercial activities in the air, in space, and in the water, can generate a massive amount of invaluable data on anomalous phenomena. I cannot help but be excited by the potential for such an endeavor, since scientific discovery is driven by anomalies. It's the existence and study of anomalies that led to the theory of relativity, quantum mechanics, and nearly all of humanity's scientific breakthroughs. This is why the study of
this
UAPs
guy's full of
should
shit.
be embraced, since whatever is occurring, the chance to
what about the
learn
face
new
of
knowledge
Cydonia again?
should never be ignored.
What about their
We must
stigma?
be thorough in collecting information, fearless in making conclusions, and open to following the data, no matter how mundane or extraordinary the results may be. I began this testimony by praising the Joint Subcommittee members for their courage, and I will end by echoing that sentiment. As the saying goes, the truth is out
Liar,
there.
how
We just
mundane
need
or
to be
extraordinary.
bold enough and brave enough to face it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. I have a lot of questions, and I have a lot of witnesses. So I would just ask if it's yes or no.
Face to face of Cydonia, then, motherfucker.
If it requires more than that, be very succinct, because I would like to go down the line and ask as many questions as possible. So for the Admiral this morning first, former DOD official Chris Mellon reached out to you about satellite imagery from 2017 that depicts a UAP. What were the dates in 2017 when this occurred?
I can't share with you the details, ma'am, but I could do it in a closed setting, and I can also tell you the agency that wrote a report on it.
Okay, so who has the imagery?
I can tell you that in a closed setting.
Can you describe what was depicted in the satellite imagery? Just a description.
It was a UAP, ma'am.
Closed setting.
That's it? No other description?
The The term that the analysts used, they called it the button. It was a disc-shaped object.
Okay, where was it?
I can't tell you that, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Elizondo, you state in your testimony that, quote, advanced technologies not by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations
such
around
bullshit.
the globe, end quote. If these technologies are not made by any government, who's making them? Private companies, or are you implying they are crafted by a non-human intelligence?
Well, ma'am, that's precisely why we're here. The problem is that, temporally speaking, over decades, not just the last 10 years, to put this in perspective,
Are these private companies you're implying, or is this non-human intelligence?
It may be both.
Okay.
When it comes to Blue Force Technologies, I would not be able to discuss
Okay.
that.
Are you read into secret UAP crash retrieval programs?
We would have to have a conversation in a closed session, ma'am. I signed documentation 3 years ago that restricts my ability to discuss specifically crash retrievals. I submitted for my book through the DOPSR process, which took a year.
More bullshit, closed sessions. What the fuck is he doing there?
What I was told I'm allowed to talk about.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes.
Does the U.S. government have any reverse, okay, we already answered that question about retrieval programs. Do any U.S. contractors have the same?
I would prefer to address that in a closed session, ma'am.
Okay. In your book, you mentioned government employees who've been injured by UAPs, placed on leave, and receiving government compensation for their injuries. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How can the government deny we have recovered craft if they're paying people because they've been injured by recovered craft?
Ma'am, that's a great question. That's why I think we're here again, because I've seen the documentation by the U.S. government for several of these individuals who have sustained injuries as a result of a UAP incident.
It's a crazy idea, right? The hypocrisy and the logic. Okay, Mr. Schellenberger, I'm going to say it again to be very clear. Immaculate Constellation. What's its mission and how are they funded?
Its mission is to, as I stated, its mission is to, it's an unacknowledged special access program. Its mission is to document UAPs.
Okay, and do you, for your story and your report, do you have more than one credible source?
I do.
Sourcing, okay.
I do.
And then why do you believe your sources to be credible? How do you judge the veracity of the documentation you've been provided about this program?
I checked the sources, and they are who they say they are. They are current or former government officials. Mm-hmm. I wanted to also add that I did not specify that they were Defense Department employees. I didn't specify the agency nor the gender.
Would they have included non-government employees, people that aren't employed by the government?
These are. I'm comfortable saying that these are government or previously government employees.
Any of them currently employed by a private contractor or private contractors?
I'd rather not say.
Okay. What's the key takeaway, just a few seconds, about the Immaculate Constellation document you provided us today?
I think that what the American people need to know is that the U.S. military and intelligence community are sitting on a huge amount of visual and other information, still photos, video photos, other sensor information, and they have for a very long time. And it's not those fuzzy photos and videos that we've been given. There's very clear
high res,
high resolution.
How many visuals, graphics, videos, photos?
I mean, I've been told hundreds, maybe thousands. I mean, I also wanted to say, because there was some conversation around concern around the revealing of these materials, revealing the source collections, but some of these are shot from helicopters using normal videos of oceans. I just think that's absurd that somehow you're going to be revealing some secret U.S. technology by revealing that you've photographed orbs off the coast of Kuwait. Okay,
thank you. I have 8 seconds. Mr. Gold, did the NASA independent study team get briefed on what you call OSAP? Very quickly.
I flagged the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Application Program to our chair and our DFO. We did not get briefed, but I believe it is definitely worth looking into. That was probably the largest UAP review effort ever, and I think produced a lot of interest data, including revealing Nimitz. I don't know if my fellow witness Lou might want to. He did yeoman's work on it. Might want to comment.
Okay. All right. I'm going to turn to Mr. Moskowitz, who will be recognized for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So, Mr. Gold, you gave a whole diatribe for a couple of minutes about UAPs, science, data collection, stigma. A lot of non-believers in all of this would just ask a very simple question. Why? Why is it so hard? Right? Like, why are people, anytime they ask, why are they always thwarted? Why are they always judged? Why is they always have misinformation spread? Why is there always retribution? Why is it always met with an ear? What's the why? If it doesn't exist, why is it such a problem?
I think if you go through the history of science, Representative, it is always difficult for breakthroughs and new information, regardless of whether it's UAP or any other kind of discovery. And in science, we're supposed to be open, but when you break with the orthodoxy of what's believed, whether it's Galileo saying that the Earth doesn't rotate or the Earth rotates around the sun or the sun doesn't rotate around the Earth, it's always challenging for new beliefs. And the more extraordinary those discoveries, the more extraordinary those new beliefs, it's very difficult. So I think this is natural. There's natural conservatism that when it comes to science, but this issue in particular has been very difficult where, again,
the more we got to cover it up,
study it becomes problematic. But every hearing like this, every news report, every video, documentaries, I was privileged to be a part of something Dan Fair is putting together. I think many of us have interviewed for it, documentary over 30 different government officials. Every brick in the wall will help get us closer to getting to the truth.
I appreciate that. Mr. Elizondo, did I have that correct?
Sir.
I'm a recovering lawyer, so I'm going to put my hat on for a second. You said you signed a document. Love that. Who gave that to you?
The U.S. government, sir.
Okay. You have a copy of it?
It is stored in a SCIF right now. I do not have possession of it. The U.S. government does.
What department of the U.S. government gave you this document?
I will say the Department of Defense. Unfortunately, I can't say in this forum much more than that.
You specifically said the document said you can't talk about crash retrieval. Well, you can't talk about Fight Club if there's no Fight Club.
Correct.
What a fucking asshole.
Making an observation.
Yes, sir.
So that document that you signed, that you said exists, specifically said you can't talk about crash retrieval.
Correct, sir. It was a limitation on because already I'd been speaking publicly about the topic, and so the document said you can continue saying X, Y, Z, but you cannot discuss the topic.
When you give me the atmosphere of signing this document. You're in a room by yourself?
I'm in a SCIF with a security officer, sir.
Just one-on-one? Anybody else?
There may have been an assistant as well.
This guy ain't here as a whistleblower, Elizondo.
Department of Defense.
They control him, what he's allowed to say.
My background is I went to school to study microbiology and immunology, entered into the U.S. Army, and after a very short stint in military intelligence, I became a counterintelligence special agent. As a civilian, later on I became a special agent in charge, running investigations in counterterrorism and counterespionage primarily, with some experience in counterinsurgency and counternarcotics. And then in 2009 timeframe, when I came back to the Pentagon after a tour with the Director of National Intelligence, I quickly became part of a program that was originally called OSAP that evolved into the program now called ATIP, which is where those videos that we now see, the Go Fast, the Gimbal, the FLIR, that was part of our effort, sir.
Right. So you're not some conspiracy theorist. You actually have a legitimate background.
Well, sir, I'm certainly not a conspiracy theorist. I'm fact-based, just a fact.
So when you're in this room, I want to paint the picture of everybody. You're in this room, you're by yourself, you're in a SCIF, you're handed a document. How long is the document?
It's about a page front and back. So basically you have some things they call trigraphs, which I cannot, again, talk to.
How long were you given to sign the document?
As long as I needed, sir.
And what if you didn't sign it?
Well, I suspect there would be repercussions. I wouldn't have access to certain information.
Were you allowed to conduct?
This guy can't do shit. Why is he a main focus? I don't trust this fucking guy. I'm sorry.
It wasn't an option, but they probably wouldn't have allowed me to because the document itself was pretty explicit about you have to be. Wait, you're putting me in an interest. Let me try to thread the needle here. There are certain documents that we have in the U.S. government that allow people to have access to certain programs. Whether it's a special, and I'm going to be very generic here, whether it's a special access program or a controlled access program, SAP, CAP, whatnot.
How many people have to sign that document?
It depends how many people are going to get access to the information, sir.
Okay. Last question. Doctor, real quick, can you tell us about the Omaha incident in greater detail? I've read your background, right? Some people would label you as a member of the deep state since you worked in government for a long period of time. But can you tell us more about that incident? You've written a lot about that.
I wrote a lot about incidents like it, Congressman, but that specific incident involved the USS Omaha, Littoral.
It's them who are controlling this shit to make themselves as gods.
I don't remember the exact date. It was within the last decade. And what the watchstanders on the bridge observed was a UAP, again, something that was aloft but had no observable exhaust or control surfaces. So it was something that couldn't be explained. And then they saw it enter the water from the atmosphere and going through the air-sea interface, and so thus exhibiting transmedium travel.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. I'll now recognize Mr. Grothman for 5 minutes of questioning.
Yeah, we'll start with Mr. Gallaudet. During a previous UAP hearing, Navy Commander David Fravor discussed the TikTok object engaged in 2004. You familiar with the incident, the TikTok incident?
Yes, sir.
And that's almost 20 years ago, right?
Yes, sir.
It's been said there are more videos, documents, and reports related to this incident. Do you believe the information regarding the TikTok incident should be available to all members of Congress?
Not TikTok.
Your expertise,
he has something in his ear
what
also.
What reason would the Department of Defense possibly have for not releasing information that's over 20 years old?
Thank you, Congressman. I don't think there's any good reason to withhold information and important data, especially of national security concern, from Congress.
Well, what would they say?
I will speculate, sir, that they don't want to share that kind of information because it reveals weaknesses in our ability to monitor and protect our airspace.
Okay. In your written testimony, you claim last year's UAP hearing before this Oversight Committee confirmed that UAP-related information is, well, it's not only being withheld, but that elements of the government are engaging in a disinformation campaign to include personal attacks designed to discredit UAP whistleblowers. Could you elaborate on that statement a little?
Yes, sir. Earlier this year, I met with the DoD's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, and what I thought would be a 90-minute meeting just to meet with leadership turned out to be an hours-long influence operation on me, where they attempted to convince me of the validity of the very flawed and error-ridden historical records report. In addition, they tried to have me question very valid UAP reports like the Tic Tac incident, and even coming to stating possibly that the Tic Tac was American technology. And then, of course, if you ask David Fravor or Alex Dietrich, the two witnesses, they were convinced it was otherwise. And then, and they also cast discredit on various UAP whistleblowers and witnesses to question their validity and credibility as witnesses.
Okay. We'll go to Mr. Elizondo. Hope I got that right, or not at least
close
not
enough,
that
sir.
Right. You're familiar with the recent drone incursion over Langley Air Force Base?
Yes, sir.
The owners of these drones remain unclear. The U.S. military has not been able to give us in Congress an answer. Given your experience with the Department of Defense and the intelligence community, how frequently are UAP sightings over military installations? And secondly, I suppose hypothetically you could have incursions over just, say, regular airports. Is it obvious these incursions are more likely over military facilities than just a random airport out there?
Yes, sir. There's definitely enough data to suggest that there is certainly some sort of relationship between sensitive U.S. military installations, also some of our nuclear equities, and also some of our Department of Energy sites. There is a long historical record that some of your colleagues may have, documentation that demonstrates this. This is not a new trend. This has been going on for decades, and that information has been obfuscated, unfortunately, from folks like you in this committee. And I think that's problematic because ultimately, at the end of the day, we have a significant situation here. We have something that can enter into U.S. airspace completely with no attribution.
And how long has this been going on?
Sir, decades. And there's information that will hopefully be entered into the record.
Can you think of any possible reason why they can't release any information they have on something, say, 15 or 20 years old?
Sir, if I could echo my colleague here, Admiral Gallaudet, I think one of the big issues that we have in the intelligence community, Department of Defense, is we don't want to broadcast any potential vulnerabilities or weaknesses in our national defense systems or our intelligence collection platforms. Therefore, when you have a conversation where you address a problem for which there is no solution, it makes that a very uncomfortable conversation to have.
Okay, we'll switch to Mr. Schellenberger. The primary reason you're here today is because you published an article on the news publication that you own called Public, right? Alleging that a new unnamed government whistleblower has come forward asserting that a highly classified program exists dedicated to recovery and reverse engineering of UAP technologies. Can you give us what specific evidence you have or that your source provided you to substantiate the claims about the existence of the Immaculate Constellation program?
Well, you have the report in front of you now, so you can see it for yourself. I checked the report, and I did not find it based on existing cases. It was new cases for me. I hadn't found anybody. So that answered for me that it was not obviously circular reporting, which is one of the big concerns in this space. I also had the name of the program confirmed by more than one additional source. And then of course I checked to make sure that the source was who they claimed to be.
Okay.
I should also say that when I said before it was this database, it is a much broader program than that. It also includes human intelligence, and then, as you mentioned, the retrieval and the reversal.
Any knowledge of what country these things originated in?
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
Okay, I will now recognize Mr. Burchett for 5 minutes of questions.
Thanks, Chair Lady. I request unanimous consent to enter into the record documents provided to us regarding legacy UAP programs and psychological operations. Lou Elizondo.
So ordered.
I also want to thank my buddy Jeremy Corbell for providing us documents and access to some whistleblowers. Mr. Elizondo, what is your last position with the federal government?
Sir, I was the Director of National Program Special Management Staff managing a White House Special Access Program on behalf of the National Security Council.
How would you characterize UAPs?
An enigma, sir, and a frustration. We're talking about technologies that can outperform anything we have in our inventory. And if this was an adversarial technology, this would be an intelligence failure eclipsing that of 9/11 by an order of magnitude.
Are there classified Department of Defense materials related to UAPs that you believe could be safely disclosed to the public without compromising national security?
Yes, sir, I do. I would never, ever try to endorse providing some sort of information that could compromise what we call a blue force technology or capability. But I do believe there's a lot of information regarding this topic, and I've been very vocal about it, that should be shared not only with the public, but most importantly, with members of Congress.
Are you familiar with my friend David Grush?
Absolutely, sir. I had the privilege and honor of working with him myself several years ago at U.S. Space Force.
Last year, as you know, he testified that the U.S. has run a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Are there UAP programs operating without proper congressional oversight?
100%.
What are they?
Unfortunately, sir, I would have to have that conversation in a closed session.
I know you said that, and a lot of people are frustrated with those kind of answers, but we're asking those kind of questions so you all know what the heck we're up against. You also mentioned in your opening statement.
There we go.
Pentagon's
What the
Public
fuck is he
Affairs
doing
Office
there?
employs a psychological operations officer as the singular point of contact for UAP-related inquiries. Why the heck would they do that?
Sir, that's a great question. I would ask the Pentagon. There's a long history here of that individual providing misleading and false information to the public through various news outlets and media outlets in order to discredit this topic. I've personally been victim to it. We have the documentation to substantiate where this information has been absolutely inaccurate, that has been provided time and time again, and it turns out that that individual was also working with former leadership of Arrow at the time as well.
And we punish them by giving them multi-million dollars more than they ask for every year. Admiral Gallaudet, you mentioned in your opening statement on an email you received from the operations officer of the Fleet Forces Command regarding unknown objects almost colliding with U.S. military planes. Did anyone respond with knowledge of what the objects were?
I received no response, sir.
Did the exercise get canceled?
The exercise did not get canceled.
Why do you think the commander of Fleet Forces operations officer never discussed the incident again?
Sir, I'm speculating because I didn't have an exchange with him, but I believed it to be part of a special access program, the information and the video, which we have known now it was, and he realized he couldn't share that openly with the recipients of the email, and therefore the email was pulled from everybody's account.
Again, tell us what happened to the email from the commander of Fleet Forces.
The day after I received it, and all the other recipients received it, which were all the subordinate commanders of U.S. Fleet Forces, so 1- and 2-star admirals, including strike group commanders, the email was wiped or deleted from our accounts, and then no one talked about it.
All right. Have you specifically had any experience with submersible objects?
Sir, I've no personal experience, but I've had witnesses on submarines come to me and say they've seen on sonar data.
Correct. Okay.
How
would you characterize those, and how do they move?
The one instance that was revealed to me was in the 80s on a nuclear-powered submarine, a ballistic missile submarine, that the object exhibited the characteristics of a Russian torpedo in terms of its speed of movement and closing rate with the submarine, and then it slowed and followed the submarine slowly in its wake for a period of minutes, and then rapidly exited the scene. And nothing that we know of and technology-wise could replicate that.
And the speed of these objects was faster than anything that we have or anybody else has that would be manned. Is that correct?
It was on the order
Underwater.
of a torpedo. So
yes, sir.
Yes, sir. But as it exited,
well, I don't exactly know how fast a torpedo is, but I expect it does better than my old outboard Scott Atwater. So I'll take that as a yes.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Have you experienced any experience with the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARROW?
Yes, Congressman. As I mentioned previously, I have met with them.
Okay. You heard Mr. Elizondo describe psychological operations for those contacting the Department of Defense about UAPs. You mentioned a similar influence operation by ARROW. Why are federal agencies invested in running information operations about UAPs if they do not exist?
Yes, sir. But I'll make a statement on ARROW's behalf. They have new leadership. The office has reached out to me to meet again, and I take that as a good faith effort, and we'll see where that goes.
Thank you, Chair Lady. I've run over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tennessee. I would now like to recognize Mr. Higgins. You're the king of Tennessee. Mr. Higgins, you're recognized for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Elizondo, Mr. Schellenberger notes in the report that we've been given for this hearing. I believe, Mr. Schellenberger, let me shift you, the author of this report.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm not the author.
Mr. Schellenberger, were you the author of this report? There's
No, I was
name
not.
on it.
No.
Do you know the author?
I do.
You do. And how would you estimate that madam or gentleman, the author?
The person is a current or former U.S. government employee.
And it states here that this is the public version of the author's report.
Yes.
So where might one find the non-public version of the author's report?
I don't know the answer to that.
Would that be with the Department of Defense?
I don't know.
But you do know the author.
I do.
You know what the author's sources were?
The author's sources are described in the report. These databases, the Immaculate Constellation.
Right, but you expressed some confidence in the sources.
I would.
Earlier in
I
testimony, you expressed confidence. So do you know those sources?
I do.
Are they within the Department of Defense?
I can't say.
You can't say, or you won't say?
I won't say. Okay,
why not?
Because I protect my sources, and I think the reason.
But you're not naming them. It's a big department, but many of us on my side of the aisle would say it's far too big. So you're talking about the Department of Defense, sources from within the Department of Defense?
I'm not willing to reduce the potential universe of where my sources might be.
Okay, moving on. In this report, Mr. Elizondo, for reference, several types of allegedly alien craft or possibly alien craft or unknown aerial phenomena, what we used to call UFOs, are described. Spheres and orbs, discs and saucers, oval or tic-tac, triangular shape, boomerang and arrowhead, and irregular or organic. Mr. Elizondo, does that summarize to you the types of craft that we're discussing today?
Sir, that is a general morphology, historically speaking, of many UAP.
So those descriptions are very different craft. Is it your Is it your assessment that they would come of different origins?
It's possible, but it also could be in sense a matter of utility. And let me just state for the record, I never read the report that or the article that Mr. Schellenberger put out. The reason
That's a good point. We're just referencing it.
Yes, sir.
For descriptive purposes for the American people. Mr. Schellenberger, in this report, it's striking to me that regarding the descriptions of experiences with these various craft, several of them include biological effects and several do not. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so spheres and orbs, triangular craft, and irregular or organic craft include some descriptions of biological effects, including feelings of unease, electronic device malfunctions, long-term psychological effects such as anxiety or insomnia have been noted, feeling of being watched, a shared awareness with the triangle craft, and under the irregular and organic craft, biological effects include physical sensations of warmth or cold and unexplained smells and psychological distress. So these are very specific descriptions of the reactions of human beings, which allegedly have been noted from a study here, a report. All of those experiences would have been described by the sources that the author used.
I'm not sure I understand.
This is a very broad description of biological effects, and it's striking to me that they are present with relation to some types of craft, but absent in others. This would require a great deal of research and study. Can you explain that?
My understanding is that this is the database is very large. It includes both the images, the videos, the still images, as well as the human intelligence, the reports, the raw data from individuals having these experiences. So in answer to your question, yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at a very large amount of data collected over many decades.
And that data is held by the Department of Defense?
Well, I will say that after I published, I was told that this program, that the USAP was actually managed by the Department of Defense but held at the White House.
Roger
but
that.
That's a single source, and I don't have multiple sources to verify that.
Thank you, sir. I did my best to trick an answer out of you, but I was partially successful. Madam Chair, I yield.
Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Frost for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In addition to serving on this committee, the Oversight Committee, I also serve on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, where we often discuss how essential data and evidence are used in science and used at departments such as NASA. During a hearing, NASA Administrator Nelson affirmed the importance of NASA in helping us to understand UAP. Mr. Gold, if the government doesn't have the data it needs on UAP because, say, someone who saw something is concerned about stigma, public backlash, etc., or maybe there's just not good systems in place, how are we supposed to ultimately figure out what's going on?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And let me compliment Administrator Nelson that there wouldn't have been a UAP independent study team if it wasn't for his leadership and courage. We're talking about data and where we can get data from. As I described, NASA has whole archives of data, much of which I believe will likely have information that will help inform UAP. We need only look. And again, in an era with AI and ML, we can relatively quickly and easily go through it. So I think it's something that we should encourage NASA to do. However, per Chairman Grothman,
we already pay for that data. Give it to us, Bassett.
National security sites. I believe there's something, sir, that you may have heard of called sensor bias. That because we've got more cameras, more monitoring of national security, we don't know how extensive UAP activity may be over civilian areas. And this is to the second part of your question where we're not collecting the data. We're not collecting sufficient data from pilots. We're not collecting sufficient data from civilian and commercial activities. And this is, again, where ASRS, I think, could substantially change that, get the data out there, and allow us to do good science.
Thank you. I mean, on the data, I'm a really big proponent of transparency. But obviously, there's always a little bit of balance that we have to have in government on transparency as well. I mean, last year, NASA appointed a director of UAP research in response to the recommendation by the independent study team. In the final report, there's a quote, despite numerous accounts and visuals, the absence of consistent, detailed, and curated observations means we do not presently have the body of data needed to make definite and scientific conclusions about UAP. Can you just talk really quickly about that balance of security and transparency?
So I can say, having served at NASA, it is the most transparent organization I've ever been in. When we would have conversations of executive leadership, things would leak out almost instantly. So I can assure you, intentionally or not, NASA's very transparent. I don't know if many of you work with engineers or scientists. They love to
most
talk.
transparent.
So I believe
what about
that
the
NASA
face of
is a
Cydonia,
paradigm
liar?
of transparency. But we must have the ability and the data to be able to be transparent with. And if we're not gathering that, if we're not looking at it, then we can't bring NASA into the game and get to that good science that you need.
You know, it was about a year ago, I was touring a facility with a pretty senior government official. We went by a certain hangar, and they said, yeah, that's, a company leases that out. We don't really know what's going on in there. We have no way of knowing what's going on in there. And there was a few of those, in fact, while we were driving around this facility. To what extent do you think that some of the UAP out there comes from off the books or unauthorized experimental aircraft?
I mean, I think probably the vast majority of UAP are drones, experimental aircraft, weather conditions, which is, again, why I say if we review the data, I think we're going to discover a lot about things we weren't even thinking about. But there is a percentage that isn't. And looking into those anomalies is how discoveries will be made. And relative to science, Congressman, if I can say, when NASA studies black holes, when NASA studies galaxies, we have instruments that are tailored to do so. With UAP, we're using cockpit gun cameras or cell phones. We could never do good science with that. And let me tell you, the NASA budget is under pressure. We need to make sure that the Artemis program is funded fully. We need to beat China to the moon and maintain our presence in low Earth orbit. So NASA would need more money to do this, but I think tailored instruments that would look at UAP in the same way that we have tailored instruments
begging
to look at
for money.
astronomical data is important.
Fuck
to gather
Artemis.
valuable and uniform information. If we were studying black holes by using fighter cockpit cameras, we probably wouldn't know that much about black holes.
100%. Well, I think it's important that federal leaders take the necessary steps to ensure that UAP does not pose threats to the American public as well, and that we have the necessary budgets to collect this data so we can actually see what's going on. And I'm fully supportive of funding the Artemis mission. I think it's very important. Also, a personal note, the pilot is a frat brother of mine. He is a member of the Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and so I would love to see my fraternity make it to the moon.
But Redwire is building the cameras for Artemis, so we will take some pictures of your frat brother and get them.
There we go. Thank you so much. I yield back.
Thank you. I will now recognize Ms. Luna for 5 minutes of questioning.
Mr. Elizondo, to your knowledge, can you name the country and around time frame that the first back-engineered UAP program started?
Ma'am, unfortunately,
Luna.
I'm not able to have that conversation in public.
Can anyone on the panel name that? None of you? Okay. This next question is for Mr. Gallaudet. To your knowledge, have any USOs ever outpaced our submarines?
Yes, ma'am.
At what magnitude?
I don't have the exact speed, but again, a witness came to me, a credible former submarine officer who observed it on sonar data. And this was in the 80s in the North Atlantic during a storm, and it outpaced his submarine by orders of magnitude.
Are you aware of any hotspots that currently exist off our shores in North America?
Not with sufficiently credible data, ma'am.
Okay, we've heard reports of there potentially being hotspots, maybe entry and exit points. Have you heard of any of that?
I have it not, ma'am, but my colleague here, Mr. Elizondo, does discuss some USO activity that he's observed in certain DoD databases.
Mr. Elizondo, in regards to these aircraft being piloted by whatever they might be, non-human biologics, would you agree that it's likely that they are being piloted by some mind-body connection?
Ma'am, I think it is safe to presume here that they are being intelligently controlled because some cases seem to anticipate our maneuvers, and in other cases they seem to, I came across an email where the word stalked was used in a very secure email between Navy officers discussing their ships being pursued by a UAP.
In our previous panel, we had Grush, and he had testified to say that some of these were interdimensional beings. Can you speak on that at all?
Ma'am, I'm not qualified, certainly as a scientist or otherwise, to speculate points of origin. I looked at everything from a scientific perspective. So if you look at, for example, instantaneous acceleration, which was one of the observables of the program that I belong to, ATIP, the human body can withstand about 9 G-forces for a short period of time before you suffer negative biological consequences, blackouts and ultimately redouts and even death. Comparison, our best technology, the F-16, which is it's an older platform, but one of our most highly maneuverable aircraft, manned aircraft, made by General Dynamics, can perform about 17 or 18 G-forces before you start having structural failure, meaning that the airframe begins to disintegrate while you're flying. The vehicles we're talking about are performing in excess of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Gs.
So I guess would it be safe to infer that they're living craft?
I'm not prepared at this point to state for the record is something alive or not, because even that definition is hard. There was a time in science we thought that life required oxygen, and we now know that's not true. There are anaerobic bacteria that thrive in oxygen environments that lack oxygen. And so also the same with photosynthesis. When I was in college, I was told everything is derived from photosynthesis as a form of energy. In reality, that's not true. There are things that live off of chemosynthesis. So we're constantly having to reevaluate our understanding of what the definition of life is.
Mm-hmm. Do any of you ever come across reports from people that claim to have firsthand experiences with these entities, whatever they might be, or these aircraft, and then as a result, whether or not they're religious, find that these things will automatically disappear? Anyone, and this is open to any of you on the panel. So just real quick, because I'm running out of time. Lou?
Ma'am, I've always been a nuts and bolts kind of guy. When I was at ATIP, I was focusing more on the performance characteristics and less on the potential occupants.
Okay, the reason I ask is because it seems like, just based on our conversations, that we've had people that say that there are good and bad of whatever these things are. And so my concern from a national security perspective is A, that true? B, are you guys hearing the reports of that? And C, I think moving forward in regards to technology, Mr. Gold, if you can answer this real quickly, some of these aircraft, it seems that they are operating off of energy that we don't currently have. But just yes or no, in your opinion, if we were able to obtain that, would that impact humanity for the better or negative?
Would certainly save us some money on funding on Artemis.
Definitely.
And this is a national security issue, that if there is such technology out there, we're not the only country that might have access to it. We don't want to be on the wrong end of technological surprise.
Okay. Thank you guys for your time.
Fuck Artemis. There he goes again, peddling for NASA.
Garcia for 5
Fuck
minutes.
him.
Thank you. And I apologize for stepping out. My governor is here upstairs, so I'm trying to get in between meetings, so apologize for that. I want to just start by just asking everyone on the panel or witnesses, and I had a chance to read all the testimony before, but just to set the agenda, just if we can go down real briefly, do you believe, just for the record, that the federal government, any part of the federal government, is knowingly concealing evidence about UAPs from the public?
Yes, sir.
100%.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I also want to just go down the line. I know many of you have already said this, but I just, for the record again, just briefly, what do you believe UAPs could be or are?
Strong evidence that they are non-human, higher intelligence.
I echo my colleague's comment, sir.
Genuinely do not know.
Don't know, but we must find out.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate those answers, gentlemen. I think this is obviously another remarkable hearing with just really important information, so I thank all of you for answering the questions. Admiral, I just want to go back to
Whole lot of
last year, our
nothing.
subcommittee heard from
Whole lot
two
of
retired
nothing.
Navy pilots
Lieutenant Ryan Graves and Commander David Fravor regarding UAPs. Actually, I think Ryan is here in the audience and been a great person to get to know and to have conversations with. He, of course, has been involved in the Safe Airspace for Americans Act with Chairman Graves, with Chairwoman Mace for UAP reporting by civilian aviation personnel. Can you discuss briefly why it's important for civilian pilots to be able to report UAPs and why these legal protections are critical for our national security?
Yes, Congressman, thank you. And I did invite Ryan Graves as my guest, as I'm on his advisory board for the Americans for Safe Aerospace, and the legislation that you supported and introduced, I fully support as well. And I think it's important that more civilian pilots, commercial pilots, report so we can better understand and learn and do research on UAP, as well as remove the stigma so more citizens report on what they observe. And also, it'll only contribute to aviation safety when we have a better understanding of where these UAP are, how they operate, and at what frequency and what capability level. So it's important for aviation safety, and it'll be important for moving science and research forward.
Thank you, sir. And I just want to reiterate to my colleagues, I mean, this is a very bipartisan piece of legislation, and we just got to continue to get this through the Congress, and it's incredibly important that civilian pilots have the opportunity to safely report the UAPs that they are seeing or encountering in the air. And I can't express how critical this piece of what I believe is a larger collection of evidence and facts actually happen. We've been approached by pilots. I've talked to folks that have been engaged with our office and others, and there is still enormous stigma. And essentially, we don't have a system where folks are feeling free to be able to report what they're seeing. And so I just want to reiterate that advocacy. Mr. Gold, in your testimony, you discussed NASA's aviation safety reporting system, a confidential, non-punitive reporting mechanism. In the Safe Airspace for Americans Act, we explicitly allow for civilian reporting, of course, of UAPs. Can you explain why the NASA task force recommended the use of the aviation safety reporting system?
The aviation safety reporting system is an existing system that is trusted, that has taken hundreds of thousands, now millions of cases. And again, recognizing budgetary constraints, this seemed like the perfect way to be able to gain more data. And when it comes to the stigma, sir, it's something that pilots are used to reporting on, that crew is used to reporting on. So it's a great way to get data, to overcome the stigma without spending really that much more additional money since the system exists. Thank you so much for your support of that. Thank you for what Ryan Graves does. This is a common sense means to expose the truth of UAP for the purposes of this.
How can we do that then for the face of Cydonia, asshole,
as part of the House Defense
liar?
Authorization Bill, the NDAA, I had filed an amendment to include the UAP Disclosure Act, which would create a UAP Records Review Board and exercise with exercise of eminent domain over UAP-related material, modeled actually on the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act, which is widely known. Now, the amendment was blocked, but thankfully the Senate included the amendment by Senator Rounds and Schumer for the UAP Disclosure Act. So I just again want to say that we should be pushing and ensuring the UAP Disclosure Act, which is bipartisan in its support, should move forward. And if I can just briefly, particularly Admiral, can you just briefly, as I close my time, explain why the UAP Disclosure Act would be critical for us and our national security?
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, I believe the UAP Disclosure Act is important for national security, as well as advancing potential socioeconomic benefits resulting from UAP research, as well as public safety, as we referred to previously regarding aviation. And this act will allow for greater transparency and open research, and that's why I'm also a member of the UAP Disclosure Fund as an advisor, as in the Sol Foundation as an advisor, senior strategic advisor, which is advocating for the same.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
All right, thank you. I'd like to recognize Mr. Biggs for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for holding this committee. Thank you to the witnesses. Admiral, the video that is called the Go Fast video, the email that you've talked about being deleted, I just want to briefly cover this. You said that the email, the author was asking whether any of the recipients were aware of the classified technology demonstrations that it could explain the objects that were observed. And then you said the email disappears. Then you guys have a series of meetings. The commander of fleet forces and his operations officer never discussed the incident again. Is that right? Is that accurate?
That's accurate, sir.
And even during weekly meetings, it was never discussed again. My question for you is, you were in those meetings. Did you personally hear that nothing was going on about that?
Yes, sir. I was in those meetings, and
did you make inquiries about that?
No, I did not, sir, because I inferred, since I had been read into other special access programs, that this UAP video was part of one that I was not read into, or any of the recipients, or the author of the email, and that an intelligence agency basically pulled it back and instructed the author of the email, hey, this is, you just conducted what they call spillage into a lower classification level, and when that's done, the procedures are basically to remove any of the communication.
You're going to silo it. So, and you, Mr. Elizondo, you said in your report and your testimony today, a government work on the UAP subject still remains classified. Excessive secrecies led to grave misdeeds against loyal civil servants, military personnel, and the public, all to hide the fact that we are not alone in the cosmos. Fair?
Yes, sir.
All right. And all of you, and Mr. Schellenberger, by the way, I've read several of your books, Mr. Schellenberger, excellent stuff.
Thank you.
What I would say, too, is you were asked about the veracity of the author of this report. You comfortable with the veracity?
Yes.
Okay. And then, and I'll get to you in a second, Mr. Gold. We'll talk about Kuhnian and Lakatoshian scientific advancement and how we're obviating that through these processes. But we'll get to that in a sec. Because what I want to really get to is the ultimate question really becomes this. For what purpose is the federal government overclassifying, because that's what they're doing, they're overclassifying, and forbidding the public for getting access to this? And if you know, if you have an explanation, I'm curious because I know what I've been told. I just want to know from your perspective, why do they overclassify? Mr. Elizondo, you look like your finger on the button ready to go.
Yes, sir.
To lie to us and control us.
I think at the time when this
and
reality
subdue
became
us
to the U.S. government, we were in the middle of the Cold War with then Soviet Union, and we did not want to tip our hands to what our knowledge base was on this topic. We did not want to broadcast that to
the Cold War's long over.
It is, sir. It is, sir. There's also then the philosophical argument that the Department of Defense and the intelligence community is solution-oriented. And when you don't have answers, it's a really tough spot to be in.
It's easier to be quiet and suppressed than if you don't have the answer.
Indeed, sir. In fact, there's a very real example when we built the U-2 spy plane and flew it over then Russia, and we're taking reconnaissance. And when we first started flying the aircraft, it flew so high and so fast we thought they weren't tracking us. In reality, they were tracking every flight. It wasn't until the Russians could develop the SA-2 surface-to-air missile and successfully shoot them down.
I would suggest to you also, along with Lakatos and Kuhn, you also have a problem with Kenneth Arrow's path dependence or increasing returns. That's one reason why they won't disclose it. It's too painful to admit. But I just want to read a couple things from Mr. Schellenberger's what he gave to us today, because I think this is interesting stuff, and I just want to convey this to you. On USG networks, there exists infrared footage of and imagery of a grouping of vessels engaged in SIGINT and massive collection at night in a specific area of the Pacific Ocean. This footage, which was in close proximity to the vessels, a large equilateral triangle UAP suddenly appears directly over the ships. These three bright points are seen at each bottom corner of the UAP, which is observed to slowly rotate on its horizontal axis. And he goes on to describe that. And I just want to read one more, and I'm doing this because I think it's interesting. This stuff is interesting as anything. So let's get this one here, right here. While performing a routine airspace surveillance and control mission in the Eastern Air Defense Sector, an F-22 fighter observed multiple UAP contacts at mission altitude. Moving to intercept, the F-22 pilot noted multiple metallic orbs slightly smaller than a sedan hovering in place. Upon vectoring towards the UAPs, a smaller formation of the metallic orbs accelerated at rapid speed towards the F-22, which was unable to establish radar locks on the presumed hostile UAPs. The F-22 broke trajectory and attempted to evade, but was intercepted and boxed in by approximately 3 to 6 UAPs. And then I'll leave that there, but because I just have no more time left. Well, she's not looking. So let's just get into let's get into part of this.
I thought I would be saved by the bell.
No. Let's talk about Kuhnian, Lakatoshian type of scientific development. And the problem that we have here is you have institutional blockage of what would be normal development of scientific ideas. And if you want to expand that, Mr. Gould.
We're over time, so be very fast, please.
I'll just say I'm a recovering attorney, so please take it easy on the science. But all breakthroughs have been heretical at first, and that's the challenge that we face, particularly with something as extraordinary as this, which is why gathering the data is so important. And I'll just end by saying, by the way, the overclassification of material is in no way limited to UAP. That is occurring throughout the government, as well as the inability to get people classifications in a timely and efficient manner, and then to have those classifications be broad enough to be useful. So this is a larger issue that I hope that Congress will look at.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Biggs. I've been generous. All right, Mr. Burleson, I'll recognize you for 5 minutes of questions, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Elizondo, does any branch of the United States government or defense contractors possess technology?
So there's documentation that I believe was submitted for the record that was approved for release by the U.S. Pentagon, by the Department of Defense Office of Pre-Publication Security Review, and it states one of the reasons why my predecessor program, OSAP, was trying to collect material of unknown origin.
Was it successfully collected?
It was not. What happened is that there was an aerospace contract company that requested to divest itself of the material that was collected in the 1950s. Right. Unfortunately, that didn't actually occur.
So let's dive into that. That's the Bigelow Aerospace, correct? So
yes, sir.
There was a journalist, Christopher Sharp, who said that there was a transfer between Lockheed Martin, Bigelow Aerospace, and the CIA allegedly blocked this. Can you describe that?
What I can say is that it was blocked. Why it was blocked, I can only surmise. I was part of some conversations later on with some of those contract personnel where they had told all of us that is accurate. What we required was a memo from the Secretary of the Air Force in order to make that complete, and that never occurred. And so when Secretary Mattis became Secretary of Defense, I decided it would be appropriate for me to try to receive a memo from him as SecDef, as Secretary of Defense, if we could not get a memo from the Secretary of the Air Force to transfer that material.
So if that material exists today, who's in possession?
Sir, I wouldn't be able to have that conversation in an open hearing. We'd probably have to have that.
Okay, my question to you then is, if we were in a secure setting, if we were in a SCIF, would you be able to provide or get access to something?
What a waste of time. This guy, I don't like this guy. I don't trust him. I'm sorry.
Hands-on or biologics that would convince me, that would show me that we have non-human origins.
Sir, that decision would not be mine. That would be to the gatekeeper still in the U.S. government.
And who would we, so if you were in our shoes, where would you go from here? How would you get that information? A lot of times we just don't know who to ask because we don't know where to go next. So if you were in our shoes, where would you go?
Well, I prefer to answer that question in a closed session. However, we established AARO for that very purpose, and unfortunately, under its previous leadership, it failed. So one would hope that they would have the authorities necessary to do that. Let's hope that this new iteration of leadership
this guy's full of shit.
Will be successful.
In the discussions, it's simply about material, or is there discussion about it was previously testified that there was biologics that were collected. Are you aware of any of that?
I am, sir, aware of the reporting that biologics have been recovered. Again, my focus was more nuts and bolts, looking at the physical aspects of these phenomenon, how they interacted around military equities and nuclear equities. So I'm certainly not a medical expert. I would not be able to probably provide you a whole lot of value in that simply because I don't have the expertise.
But was anything described as that we have possession of bodies?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Is it multiple types of creatures or?
Sir, I couldn't answer that. I can tell you anecdotally that it was discussed quite a bit when I was at the Pentagon. The problem is the supposed collection of these biological samples occurred before my time, in fact, before I was even born.
And was this part of the Lockheed Martin discussion, or was this the biologics is a completely separate
Separate yet related.
Okay. Has anyone made contact?
Sir, I'm sorry, could you specify?
Has there been any, to your knowledge, any communication with a non-human life form?
So the term communication is a bit of a trick word because there's verbal communication like we're having now. The problem is you also have nonverbal communication. And so I would say definitively yes, but from a nonverbal meaning, when a Russian reconnaissance aircraft comes into U.S. airspace, we scramble 2 F-22s, and we are certainly communicating intent and capability. I think the same goes with this. We have these things that are being observed over controlled U.S. airspace, and they're not really doing a good job hiding themselves. They're making it pretty obvious they have the ability to even interfere with our nuclear equities and our nuclear readiness.
Is the United States government and our contractors, are they pulling technology from this? Or they're reverse engineering this?
Sir, as I previously stated, and please forgive me, I am not authorized to discuss specifics about crash retrievals. I signed documentation with the U.S. government. What I can say was, after a very thorough review process by the Pentagon, what I wrote about. And that was my limit, unfortunately, that I was given.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I would now like to recognize Mr.
What a
Timmons for 5 minutes of
whistleblower.
questioning.
Yeah, blow it out your ass.
Mr. Elizondo, you just said something interesting. You said they don't seem to be hiding. They don't seem to be hiding. The UAP sightings are becoming increasingly brash, if you will. And, we've been hearing about these for years, but they've generally been isolated and not as consistent and over critical military installations. Would you say that's fair? Is this becoming increasingly often? Is it happening more and more?
Great question, sir. Let me see if I can answer this for you. Certainly, there seems to be some indication that they're being provocative, meaning that they're, in some cases, literally splitting aircraft formations right down the middle. So that's an air safety issue. The question is it the frequency increasing? And the response is it depends. Yes, it's possible that there is an increase in frequency, but it's also possible that there's heightened awareness now, and there's also more pervasiveness of technology out there that's collecting this information and that can record this information. So we're not quite sure yet if it's actually an increase in numbers of these events, or is it that we have better equipment now that to record these things, and we have a better ability, if you will, to analyze these things.
And that's my next question. It seems that a lot of these sightings occur near military installations. Do you think that these UAPs are intentionally targeting military installations, or do you think that we have increased abilities to monitor surrounding the military installations?
Sir, maybe both. Part of my concern is we have something in the Department of Defense and the intelligence community called IPB, Initial Preparations of the Battle Space. And we use equities like ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or other type of equities and technologies to prep the battle space. And certainly, if I was wearing my national security hat, even if there was a 2% chance that there was some sort of hostile intent here, that's 2% higher than we really can accept. And so we must figure out, there's a calculus, capabilities versus intent, in order to identify if something is a national security threat. We've seen some of the capabilities, yet we have no idea in the intent. And so this is why this discussion is somewhat, I think, problematic from a governmental perspective, because we have no idea.
Sure, thank you. Mr. Schellenberger, you're particularly familiar with the Langley Air Force Base incident a year ago? Are you familiar?
Just from what I read in the
Just
news.
from what you've read?
Yeah.
I would imagine a large percentage of the American population became aware of that with the Wall Street Journal article. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And were you aware of that incident prior to the Wall Street Journal article?
No.
To the rest of the panel, was the Wall Street Journal article the first time that y'all were made aware of what was essentially an over 2-week UAP frenzy over Langley Air Force Base? Were y'all aware of this prior to the Wall Street Journal article? Anybody? Show of hands. Yes, sir. Dr. Guyette, could you give me how did you become aware of it?
A colleague of mine who I referenced previously, Chris Mellon, he wrote an extensive article about this, that there were other incursions of drones over Langley before this, as well as many, many military installations over the last 5 decades.
And it's my understanding that there's been an ever-increasing in number, and I'm trying to think how to say this, because I wear 2 different hats. I'm still in the Air Force. So, I mean, it seems that they're becoming increasingly brash, and the question that we really have to figure out is it China or is it non-human? And I think that's the biggest question the American people want to know. If it's China, it's scary because they have a lot of technology that we cannot explain. And if it's non-human, that's scary because we don't know the intent. Would you say that's fair?
Yes, Congressman. And in fact, I really believe that we should use this hearing as a catalyst to improve and bolster our air
He already said it's not human.
And our maritime domain awareness capabilities, because obviously there are holes in it, whether it be UAP of non-HI direction or NHI direction, or, as you say, sir, China or any other adversary.
Are you all aware of any task force at the Pentagon or in the national security apparatus that's trying to assess the answer to that question?
At the current moment, sir, no, but this is a great point. From 2020 to 2022, there was a UAP task force in the DoD succeeding where Mr. Elizondo worked, led by Jay Stratton, who had the first comprehensive whole-of-government approach to UAP, which involved pathways to declassification and to increase transparency, as well as assessing the national security risks of UAP. This was a really well-established approach, and we have all advocated that something like it return.
I'm running out of time. The last thing is that we need authorities. The law enforcement, military do not have authorities to actually engage, and Congress needs to act to give those authorities to local law enforcement and the military so they have clear guidelines on how to assess these issues going forward. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Ms. Boebert for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now that we have all been cautioned in this committee hearing that the mention of Pentagon's Immaculate Constellation program could put us on a list, well, I already find myself on many lists, I'm sure.
So there you go. We heard the gist. Is like another 20 minutes or so of that, but that's all right. It was a timing thing. And this is a great place to leave off anyway. So again, I don't know. I don't really trust that Elizondo guy. What whistleblowers? They're all blowing it out their ass, really. One guy, Mr. Goldie's there, basically trying to peddle for NASA, saying they're the most transparent. We could give lots of data. And, regards to stigmas, well, what about the fucking face of Cydonia and their deliberate lies? Again, get ready for the book coming out, well, almost about to be finished. Then it'll be coming out. The Faces of Mars Beyond Mere Tricks of Light and Shadow. So you're going to look forward to that. And you want this guy and that association being in control and as a major lead part in UAP research. Just give out the fucking data. We paid for it. He's admitting that they have a shitload of data. Give it to us. So that being said, there's just lots of things I could go over on it. But listeners to this show can appreciate, we got a motto here: pack 'em and smoke 'em, because you're definitely going to need it when we come back on a Martian Revelation with Stephen Bassett.
I'll be back.
Don't run. We are your friends.
Imagine that everything the U.S. government has told you about UFOs since Roswell has been a lie. Imagine that in a decade after Roswell, the government attempted communication with the aliens and succeeded. And after that, in absolute secrecy, things had gone far, far beyond this. Now imagine that tomorrow, the whole secret program is going to fall apart, and every terrible thing is going to come out. All we have left now is a prayer. Morning Star Pass, the collapse of the UFO cover-up, a fictional but unflinching and terrifying look inside the UFO cover-up, the secret government that supports it, and the world of the aliens themselves, and then how the whole secret kingdom ends. Morningstar Pass, a book that pulls no punches and does not sheath the sword unblooded. Morningstar Pass, plunging boldly where no other book has ventured, captures the whole wondrous nightmare that the UFO experience has become. From bizarre experiments performed on helpless abductees, to horrifying mutilations, to beyond, to the world of secret government supported by its own secret police, to the aliens in their secret bases, and finally to the beckoning stars themselves. The book does this by placing the cover-up, humanity, and the Earth in a real cosmos, where humanity and its passions are a part of the universe, not an aberration on it. Then comes the fall of the cover-up, and a climax of violence and desperation, to leave the human race facing the multi-hued stars with eyes open and seeking its place in them. The sands of time have run out for the cover-up, for against it, leading an army of investigators and warriors, comes Cassandra Chen, beautiful, driven, and doomed. Who can save her and us? Haha, you'll have to read it to find out. Morningstar Pass, The Collapse of the UFO Cover-Up by Victor Norgard. Get yours today. You can find this at www.firstbooks.com.
I'm gonna tell you a story about a fight, about our lives. This could be your story.
See us far as we do.
That's right. Here it's all marching. We are the new revolution of the Martian revelation. And helping us in this march, let's introduce our guest, Stephen Bassett. And Stephen Bassett has spoken to audiences in 20 countries about the political implications of UFOs/UAP PET phenomena and disclosure, the formal confirmation by heads of state of an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. He is co-founder of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance and executive director of Paradigm Research Group, a 501c3 nonprofit providing education, consulting, analysis, and political activism for a post-disclosure world. You hear us marching. You hear us marching. We are the new revolution, right, everybody? But his advocacy work has been well covered by national and international media, including Commie Network News, Fox News, MSNBC, Washington Post, and New York Times. Bassett has appeared in many documentary films as well, and his lectures and interviews are well represented on YouTube. In 2013, Paradigm Research Group organized and conducted a citizen hearing on disclosure at the National Press Club in Washington. In November of 2014, Paradigm Research Group had launched a 2-year political initiative out of Washington, D.C. that injected the ET issue into the 2016 presidential campaign. In December 2023, Steve had co-founded the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance in Los Angeles, a new media-centric organization aiming to align those working within the UFO, UAP, ET research arena with writers, directors, producers working across every facet of the global entertainment industry. And it's true, this subject is controversial and real. It needs the attention drawn to it. It does have a lot of entertainment purposes over the years. We all grew up in that. Science fiction on TV, media, song, all sorts of literature. So what a time now as we're all marching on to the new revolution with Stephen Bassett here. We should not be shocked that such an effort is underway by him. And PRG recently had launched an activist project called Shipstorm, seeking UAP UFO hearings as soon as possible before the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. So everyone on the facesofmars.com, please click on his links there for Paradigm Research Group, Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, Shipstorm, as well as PRG media coverage. So under that, you all could also on the page be able to watch the video for the committee again. And I love it, Steve, as there's a picture under that has the 4 participants, the witnesses, from left to right. One saying, I was told it was not UFOs. I could tell you later. I literally don't know. And give NASA more money. Do you see it in its fast sum up as quite being like what is being presented in that particular image, sir? Those sentiments? And thank you for being on with us tonight, Steve, especially at the importance. I think it's real important of this hearing. Hello? Is he on with us, brother? You can unmute your mic now, if that's the issue. Well, it shows he's connected on here. Is there anybody out there? Yes! That's the whole problem. There's somebody out there and they're coming here. And more than one somebody's apparently. So, I don't know. I think Stephen, I don't know if he's even hearing us. Mean Green, do you hear me? Does anyone hear me? Hopefully it's not just all dead air going on. Oh, you thought he was on here, huh? I don't know. It says 2 of 3. I don't know what appears to be the problem. I wonder if he's seen that image, though. You know, I was told it was not UFOs. I can tell you later. I literally don't know. Give NASA more money. Again, why give NASA more fucking money? Look. We don't want them in charge of anything. They're the old guards trying to secure the old ways to gain back power. Now we have taken back this country. Now we can make our fate. You see how that works? And with the new and improved non-DEI, no didn't earn it. We all millions of jobs it will create by what? Investing personally, financially, and benefitingly as a nation with SpaceX, Elon Musk, and the big effing rockets. That's right. That's right. So Artemis, he keeps worrying about Artemis. Mentioning what about Artemis? Those billions of dollars piece of shit. And the ones who is really making progress and strides is the one that'll not just park us in orbit on the moon and then figure out another way to go from orbit, cislunar orbit, down to the moon lunar surface. We'll have Elon Musk be able to go there, send a couple of ships as we go on to Mars, because we don't have to secure the moon and do the moon first before we go to Mars. But that being said, I'm just trying to fill up the space so there's no dead air. Who the hell's messaging me, man? Oh, you will restart Skype. All right, he's going to restart Skype. Maybe it's a Skype issue. So he'll have to bring me on. You may have a dead pause, but the stream should still be going, I hope. So let me know. Can you hear me now? Ain't great? What the hell? I don't know. I'm on the call. I don't know if anyone else is on with me. You must hear me, I hope. Oh, la, 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 la. Come on, la 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 la. Fa la 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 la. So I'm not pressing nothing. I'm assuming that you got control of the whole thing there. But I don't know if we're even streaming back on yet. Is there anybody out there? Oh. Is there anybody out there? Bing, ding, ding. Let me know something, brother. I still see the show streaming. It still has the picture. I was told it was not UFOs. I can tell you later. I literally don't know. Give NASA more money. That's hilarious. Can anyone hear me? I don't hear anyone. Shit. Yeah. I'm hearing something now. Is that you, Mingrin? Hello?
It's me.
It's Steve. Hey, all right. Now I just need
off right now.
No, you're good now. I already introduced you and all that. Okay, good. Very good. Something happened. I don't know if we're streaming back on the show or not yet. I just need to confirm it from Ingrid. But right. Something went wrong. He had to restart Skype. So it's a Skype issue. What do you want for free? But anyway, they're always messing with things that, aren't broken. But okay. Let me know.
All good.
He says, All right, Mean Green, are we streaming this yet?
And Gary, I've got to be done by a little before midnight.
Okay. All right.
Got one more show to do and then I'm done. But I've already done 23 shows in the last 3 days.
Oh yeah, I bet. Mean Green, are we our voices are going over or not? I see an orange screen on video that's playing on Comic Book.
I don't have my video on. I'd just rather keep it off if you don't mind.
All right, no problem. Mean Green, you could turn my mug on if you want.
Yeah, yours is on. Yours is on. Green is up there. Everything's good.
All right, cool deal. But are we being heard though, Mean Green? I don't know. But anyway, what I was saying though, I don't know if you caught that introduction for you, but I on the show page there's a picture that's basically of the four guests of the four testimonials to testify from left to right. I was told it was not UFOs. I can tell you later. You can know who said that most of the time. I literally don't know. Give NASA more money. Hey, what do you think, Steve, of that? Do you think that's like an accurate portrayal of what we witnessed? And you know me, that guy being there, that takes the cake. Give NASA more money. That they're the most transparent regards to this with the data. What about the Face of Cydonia they lied about? So of course I plugged my upcoming book, The Faces of Mars Beyond Mirror, Tricks of Light and Shadow. That's gonna spank him and make him look stupid. But other than that, you know, is that an accurate sum up though? It's in a picture that someone put probably as a meme. What did you get out of it? You were in that hearing, I believe.
Of course. No, this again, I have a broad historical and current perspective on this. I'm doing everything in the context of a political process underway, almost like a chess game that we are about to win. It's a game that's been going on actually for 77 years. So this hearing, the second hearing, in approximately 16 months, right? Is an excellent follow-up to the Grush hearing. Prior to the Grush hearing, we had not had a hearing since 1968, 55 years. And because of developments that were initiated in late of 2017, a lot of things have happened. In fact, we've made extraordinary progress. More has happened in the last 7 years in terms of achieving a resolution of this issue and in the truth embargo disclosure than in the previous 70. So this hearing is just part of a process which is leading to disclosure. This hearing was very powerful, but most people may not have sensed that. Most people are looking for, are thinking that this process is about telling them all about the ETs. And that's not what it's about. There is information that has come out, which is notable, particularly because it was under oath. But almost everything that's come out is
right. She said this is where it gets real. Remember, it gets real now. She said under oath.
So plenty of researchers know these things, so they're not telling them anything new. So you might say, well, then if they're not saying something new, what was the point? That's because it's not about telling us exactly what's going on. It's about a process that is leading to the president being able to confirm this. That's disclosure, capital D. And so once you look at it that context, it's much more understandable. The government can't say there's an extraterrestrial presence here, so we need to have hearings, because that would be disclosure. And if it was from the DOD, it wouldn't be. It has to come from the president. So this is a process leading to a defined outcome, and that is disclosure by the president, and it includes briefings, legislation, hearings, and so forth. This is just one part of this process, but it's an important. The great hearing was one person essentially coming forward with some very significant information that, again, was not unknown to the researchers, but the general public, definitely most public, did not know. And he came forward ultimately under oath in front of a hearing, giving it much more power. And so the Grush hearing is very significant, and he essentially second-hand outed what I think he called the USAP. Might have called it just a SAP. I'm not sure. And it was dealing with non-human tech, non-human bodies. Big deal. They added 2 more witnesses because it would have been awkward for him to be up there by himself. So putting Graves and Fravor on either side, they had a few things to say, nothing much, but it definitely balanced things out nicely. And so this was a very significant hearing. I was there, generated a lot of media. And so then what? Well, a lot happened after that, I assure you. But it did take 16 months to get the next hearing. Now, there were a couple of briefings in there where an individual, a staffer or somebody, went up to the Hill and sat down and gave a briefing to one of the senators. Usually it was Gillibrand, but that's not a hearing, it's a briefing. Right. So not a big deal. We did a hearing. But as we know, the certain House Republicans have taken the bit between their teeth, and they're decided they're going to get disclosure. Some of them have stated that there is an ET present. They've stated that the government's not telling the truth, and they're going to get to that truth. They're going to execute oversight. They're led by Tim Burchett, and after that, Nancy Mace and Apollina Luna. These are the 3 key members that are pursuing this. They've even set up the first UAP caucus in congressional history. It has, I think, about 7 or 8 members, but it's going to grow. Trust me. So this is all very important. So they wanted another hearing. Mace wanted another hearing, and this time because she would be running this one. Burchett essentially led the last one. She leads this one. That's no problem. So she went out seeking witnesses. Now, wisely, this time she didn't want a single super witness with a couple of wingmen. She wanted 4 substantive people covering a broad spectrum of the issue, different perspectives. And she got 2 fairly early, and that was Elizondo and Gallaudet. Gallaudet was a nice catch, a new addition to the team. Very good man, very excellent career, and of course he has.
Gallaudet seemed more convinced, or at least suspicious of it being non-alien origin, or did I get the misimpression?
No, they all kind of mentioned, well, it could be this, it could be that, but Gallaudet is, I think, pretty much on the side of it's a non-human tech, non-human bodies. But then she was struggling to get some more witnesses. One of the reasons was that she set her mind on getting a very significant witness that had just turned up, not that long before this hearing was held. And that was the gentleman that came forward and stated that an anonymous source had provided him access to highly classified documents regarding a USAC, Immaculate Constellation. And that program did a lot of things. It did a lot of stuff, but including some re-engineering and study and what have you, as well as archiving.
Yeah, Nancy had also mentioned that it gets her put on a list. She obviously knows the person, but said the name would be withheld. And I got a 4-minute news clip that says a few things and regarding that with Nancy Mace. I want to play in a couple minutes if all right with you, sir, because I think she laid out things there to where I think you could answer or refer to. You know what I mean? But that Immaculate Constellation, just by us saying it, we're on the list too now. I don't know about you. I had enough of lists.
We're not on a list, and neither is she. So she went after that witness. It was a bold move and a strategically clever one. Because what happened was, apparently, intermediaries approached her one way or another, could be phone, could be whatever, and said, we don't want that witness to appear. And I think they went even further and said, we don't even want an Immaculate Constellation to be mentioned. Well, Nancy is a pretty tough lady. And so she basically told him, oh, I'm going to go there. Now, she, for whatever reason, she still couldn't get the witness that had come forward, right? The one that had, the gentleman that had come forward with the information, she couldn't get him, and she couldn't get his source, which was anonymous. But she wasn't going to give up. And so she ended up doing an end run around the DOD's objections, and she brought in Schellenberger. Now, that's important because Schellenberger was the first journalist that this guy went to. And he covered the story. He said
12 pages, right? 12 pages to them, at least I think she said.
I don't know if he showed him the summary or he showed him the original docs, but whatever, he got the picture, and he was sufficiently confident that he decided to take it on. And he's a professional investigative journalist. And then Ross Coulthard was brought in, and he does an interview on this. So this thing is now in play, and so she gets Schellenberger. That was significant. She needed one more. And while she was looking for that, I was trying to get a witness to her, an extremely important witness. And so in the days leading up, I don't.
You're breaking up a little, Steve. You're breaking up a little, Steve. Like your mic might be flapping around, not near your mouth.
No, nothing has changed here. Everything is exactly
Might be
slight, and with this issue, perhaps. So about 10 days before the hearing, I walked in hard copies of a set of affidavits signed by witnesses to the nuclear weapons being turned off. We call them nuclear tampering witnesses, but nuclear shutdown witnesses. And they have been, for the last 30 years, led by Captain Robert Salas, who has never had a chance to testify. Neither have any of them. And they've done everything you could possibly do. They've gone to the press. They've held press conferences in Washington. They wrote 4 books, did a documentary. And the DOD would not acknowledge they existed. And the media followed that, meaning, okay, if you're not going to acknowledge they exist, we're not interested. And so they just never got their due. The issue's out there. It's been researched some. People know about the shutdowns. A lot of people do, but they've never had a chance to testify. And they've never had a major real article in a major paper. And now they're dying off. And so I made an effort to get at least Bob into that hearing room. So I put the affidavits into their offices. Then a few days later, I emailed another set. Not emailed. I mailed a set, which would have come in by mail. And then ultimately, Nancy Mace was sent a electronic copy. So all of this was in an effort to get Robert Salas as the 4th witness. Well, I don't know if they even saw these documents because I was delivering them literally as the end of the campaign. I mean, the campaign's underway. I mean, this is before the election. And so it didn't happen. So she got, essentially, she got Mike Gold. So what we ended up with, and what testified that day, was more powerful than Grush, though many may not get it. Because what you had there is not simply a single person with an extraordinary piece of information that he wants to tell you. You have 4 people with a broad spectrum of careers in science, in government, military, and what have you, giving a testimony about things that they know and are concerned about. And these testimonies are literally reinforcing each other. And so from the standpoint of serious people out there, journalists, politicians, whatever, this hearing is going to be more impacting than the Grush hearing. It was very, very significant. So in addition, the amount of entities that were live streaming it was substantially more than the first time. Now, I still don't know how many, but I'm going to find out. C-SPAN, I think one of the UK papers, Scripps News, a number of them. So
right.
I don't know how many people saw that thing live, but the record of that hearing, the 2 hour, 16 minute, it's available. You can easily find it. And so over the next, perhaps 1 million, 2-3 million people may see that hearing. So again, this is a very significant event. The energy in the hallway and the line, which started forming at 4 a.m, was extremely great. You had tons of documentarists and other people filming interviews. Whenever anybody turned up, they were approached and wanted selfies and so forth. Like James Fox turned up and he's treated like a superstar. Elizondo walks by, everybody wants to shake his hand. This was powerful. All right. So far, so good. All right. And so but and again, unlike the Grush hearing, this was more covered, more expansive, and we had more of an opportunity to work with it. And so MUFON and New Paradigm Institute came together for a joint presentation that was set up 30 minutes after the hearing was over, right around 2 o'clock, 2:10. About 90 people came over, and the presentation was by Danny Sheehan, Jim Sessions, and Sessions.
Is that one online, sir, that I could put on the archive page in reference to this?
It is out there, and if you search for New Paradigm Institute MUFON presentation, I think you will find it. And so Danny Sheehan presented, Ron James presented for MUFON, the MUFON director, chairman Dave McDonald presented. I spoke.
I was just going to ask that. Did you get to speak?
Yeah, and all of this was about the fact that the New Paradigm Institute was developing a very strong relationship with MUFON to work on the disclosure process, each using the other's resources. So this is announcing a collaboration. Of course, Danny talked about disclosure and so forth, and why we need this, and we also talked about the hearing a little bit. It was all filmed, but my focus was I introduced Bob Salas, and so Bob Salas spoke as well. Obviously, he spoke about the fact that he is a witness to the nuclear turndowns in Malmstrom. So this was a nice event, got that going, and then people went off to dinner. But then at 5:30, there was another event, again designed to piggyback on the congressional hearing, and this was on the Hill by UAP Disclosure Fund based in San Francisco. And this was a high-level prestige event, invite only. You had members of Congress, you had press, you had some of the witnesses and other big shots. UAP Disclosure Fund is a 501c3 nonprofit with a very substantial board and people involved. It's high level. And I'm sure they're raising money now. They'll probably end up raising millions as we move forward. So that happened.
Is that available too?
Well, you can easily Google UAP Disclosure Fund and it comes right up. So it was a big day, but it got better for me because in all of the filming and the meetings and everything else, many of which you can't keep up with it all, but a lot was going on. A lot of people were talking to a lot of people were being interviewed, some people on film.
It's about time. Like last year you were on after the Grush hearing, remember? You even made some predictions, and even though it wasn't toward the end of the year or to start after the new year, you knew for sure it would definitely be this year. And I kind of predicted right. I said, what if after Trump becomes president? Now, on that note, is it all right if I play that 4-minute clip, sir?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, and listen closely. Again, the Nancy Mace, it's incredible. She brings up a few of these subjects together. I think you could tie into this all. This is incredible. I got to do a search for those videos, too, for the archive page. All right, I'm going to play. Please mute your mic for 4 minutes.
South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Congresswoman, thank you for being with us. Those of us who've been following this very closely have been hearing whispers of the words immaculate constellation for a few months now. You went out and put it straight on the record. Why did you think that was important?
Well, it's important that if the Pentagon or other federal agencies hiding these programs that they deny from the American public, and yet we learn recently that it actually does exist, the American people ought to know the truth and the facts. There's so much that we have overclassified. You can't talk about the date of some of the alleged UAP imagery, for example. Some of the witnesses couldn't even describe what they've seen because of the way things have been overclassified. You can't talk about the budget for some of these programs because that's classified. We overclassify everything into what end? Does it really make America safer? I don't think so. And the American people deserve to know the truth.
It must have been very frustrating for you sitting up there and not being able to get a lot of those straight answers. Was for people that were watching it too. And then you posted this very mysterious report for the public to see with alleged details about Immaculate Constellation. What is in here is wild. I mean, and I'm paraphrasing, but reports of F-22s getting like boxed in by flying orbs that they couldn't shake. There were satellite images or satellite image of a football field-sized flying saucer hiding in clouds seen from this satellite looking down. Have you seen any of this footage or these images?
I have not seen those images or footage, but of course we're going to want to go digging for it in a skiff right after this. But the question I asked Michael Schellenberger, the journalist who was there testifying today, was when he wrote this report about the Immaculate Constellation, was did he have more than one source? And the type of sourcing he used, he had multiple sources, they had clearances, they were very credible individuals, and that's really important detail when you're bringing forth this kind of information.
Absolutely. And Congresswoman, the testimony we heard today, I mean, it was suggesting that around the time that Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon helped get those black and white videos out in 2017, that's when this shadow program was spun up to kind of vacuum up all the data in a way that the public would not know. The allegation, if I understand it correctly, was that it was done out of the executive branch, which would have been President Trump at the time. The president right now, or the president-elect seems to be appointing some pretty heavy hitters that have been demanding UAP transparency to his cabinet, like Rubio, Ratcliffe. What do you think we're going to see next year when Trump takes office on this?
I hope that we'll have the most transparent and accountable administration in U.S. history, not just for UAPs, but across the board with every single federal agency, because the American people overwhelmingly voted for the truth and voted for transformational changes within the federal government. And that should be one of them. Transparency should be a part of that. We had great witnesses today, including the Admiral Gallaudet, who said that, emails were deleted when they started talking about the UAPs that were witnessed on a ship when they were out and deployed at sea. So we learned a lot of information. We learned information that the government denies. They say there is no there. These things don't exist. But yet we learned today that there are federal employees and individuals injured by crashed craft retrieval programs and being paid by the government and compensated. So you can't tell me it doesn't exist, and yet you have people who've been harmed by retrieving craft and are being paid by the government for those injuries. So it doesn't add up, and we have a lot more to investigate. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, fingers crossed we'll get some solid answers. Last question really fast. I mean, we saw bipartisan curiosity here. Do you think that's going to continue?
Oh, I hope it does. And UAPs is a place where both Democrats and Republicans alike have come together to demand transparency, to demand government accountability. The other thing that we've been doing, too, is we've been working together to protect whistleblowers. There are people that have come forward since the last hearing. There will be more people that come forward, I hope, after this hearing. And we're doing our best to protect those individuals, Democrat and Republican alike.
So, very interesting, you touch base on some things. So on that note, what you like about it, can you touch base on the things that she has mentioned about, especially regards to President Trump, because like you brought it up too, the timing of this all, and that's where you said last year on the show that, in your model, which is still where I believe also, we're being led paced at a time where we must be told ultimately this disclosure process, not overnight, but it's going to come ultimately to when something may come down and be individual, for lack of a better word, walk up to a podium and the microphone say, and have the physical meeting, contact, hello, right? So where we're at now, where do you think we are in that model? How many years ahead? You might have to unmute your mic. Shit, I hope he still hears me. Is he with us still, Mean Grain?
Sorry, you had the mic off. You told me to put it off. Sorry, Gary. I'll clean that up a little bit because you're trying to remember what I did a year ago. But first of all, I had not heard that interview. Again, there were a lot of interviews taking place, and they're going to start popping up. That was an excellent one. I don't know who that individual was with the media venue he was representing, but that was a very excellent statement.
Some CNBC guy, I think.
Oh, if it was CNBC, that's fantastic. So she has made it clear she wants more hearings. She talks about the fact that it's nonpartisan. We need to work together. Absolutely. And she talks about the basic issue. So good. So we know she's going to have more hearings. Now, more good news is that based upon some other things that took place, I think the prospects of Bob Salas and maybe one or two other SAC-based officers who were present when our missiles were turned off, shut down while a UAP hovered right over the base. All right. and seen by all of the security guys up top. There's a good. I think there's a possibility they may get to testify before the a House committee. I'm going to continue to work on that. I think they would be profound witnesses, and more importantly, they will have finally gotten a chance to testify under oath. Now, there's another hearing that may turn up in the Senate in December. That's fine. Maybe they can show up there as well. So we're really in a good place here. The other thing I'm going to mention is that Mace is tough. She when she was approached to stay out of the Immaculate Constellation, don't go after that witnesses, she basically told him to go pound sand. Now, she didn't get the witness, but she got Schellenberger, and that summary of the original document got that. So, a significant accomplishment on her part, without question. So again, all good. We're moving forward. Now, in terms of the time frame, what I was saying last year is that based upon things that were happening, we had an excellent chance for the Senate to wrap this up in early 2024. They even could have done it at the end of 2023. Right. But it's always something, right? And so before a hearing could be put together.
She did say pressure on them to not do the hearing or to not bring up certain things. Those are more issues we the people should know about too. Because what this shows to me, sir, and I mentioned this last year, this is Congress, which means they're not as powerful as we the people are supposed to assume, and they're asking permission from those in control of all this shit for the truth. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
But there is a relationship that is in law regarding between Congress and the Defense Department and so forth, and it's not being followed appropriately.
Do you think this frustrates what you've been trying to do all these years and what others are doing? And how long did Salas speak?
Again, Salas hasn't. Oh well, at the after event, the MUFON, joint MUFON, he spoke for about 5-6 minutes. All right. So,
okay.
As I said, other things have happened that may help result in Bob Salas and maybe some other witnesses testifying at a future House hearing. Now, to get back to the time frame, we had a decent shot at the end of 2023. I didn't see any barrier there. And what happened on to October the 7th, the Middle East exploded. And it's still that's true. Exploded. And so these kinds of things just make it harder. So eventually we're getting into 2024. I think they had maybe an opportunity early 2024, but ultimately there was no way. The election takes over everything. So it didn't happen as of the election. Now, here is my assessment of what could and should happen over the next, let's see, 4 months, 4.5 months. Goes like this. I'm sorry.
To bring it up.
So January, February, end of March. Okay, that's 3. January, February, end of March. 4.5 months. All right. Okay. There's 2 ways this can go now. One is there is ample time for the Senate to hold a hearing that we've been waiting for. And I don't mean a one-person briefing. I don't know what Gillibrand has in mind, but that could easily be expanded. There's plenty of time. The witnesses are ready. They've got plenty to choose from. And they could hold a hearing in front of the Intel Committee, Senate Intel Committee, 20 witnesses, 5 days, and they would blow the truth embargo up. It would be the end. Ball game's done. And that then sets the stage for the president to come forward and confirm what they've just testified to under oath. That's disclosure, capital D, done. Now, that is to me the preferable way to go, not for a partisan reason, but in terms of what is in the best interest of the country. If they do that, then essentially, yes, Biden ends up the disclosure president, as I define it. He then essentially, shortly after that, he's going to be leaving office. He's not going to be running for office. He gets a bit of a legacy on the way out the door. However, it is the next president that will address the post-disclosure world.
Who do you think it would most likely would and could and should be, especially with Nancy Mace mentioning about Trump and his positions regard to this, especially with the creation of the Space Force? To me, it has to be him. If it definitely ain't Biden, because if Biden works for the deep state's in control of everything that's being warred against to take our country back. And aren't they the ones, sir, who's in control of all these black op programs and of all this knowledge that's making Congress not be aware of all this? Is it those same players?
Since you
That might
asked,
be a question to you. I don't know.
the term deep state has no meaning to me. It's useless.
Okay.
But I do know that the military intelligence elements of our country are the ones that are running these programs. How tight or how loosely remains to be seen, and to what extent they're not getting oversights another matter. But we know where these programs basically are. They're attached to either the armed services, they could be attached to the Department of Energy. But that's what's involved here is ending the fundamental embargo. The fundamental embargo is nothing more than there's an ET presence. That's it. Once you said that, that's disclosure. Everything else, right, how it comes, that's after disclosure. All right. So if without disclosure, we're going to be chasing that other stuff for the rest of this decade. I mean, the rest of this century, rather. All right. So with respect to disclosure, the option that I just described is the best way. The reason for that is that when the new president takes over, we'll already be about a month into the post-disclosure era. Most of the other major nations' head of state, if not all of them, will have come out and confirmed it as well. It'll be the issue in the world. People will be excited and talking about it worldwide.
Do you think that give us samples then? Because many people are chewing at the bit, including myself, of any at least video, something to attribute of the fact. Yes, we know this is true now. That's the disclosure. But people want to, we want to taste. We want to see something.
Again,
or just how much later do you think that would come?
Again, what we need is a Senate hearing with very high-level witnesses under oath. There are plenty of them. Lots of David Grushes. That's watched by millions of people. That it basically blows up the truth embargo. In other words, people that watch that realize, of course, that sets up the president to be able to come forward and simply confirm what people have already just seen, and do it in a pretty straightforward way. No partisanship. And then if we do it in this first, as I described, then Biden is the disclosure president. So what? Now, before the new president takes over, we're already a full month into the post-disclosure world. And therefore, that issue is now, the fundamental issue is resolved. The world is involved now. It's not just a U.S. thing. It's global, multi-country. And so the new president, essentially, the challenge for the new president is to start addressing, and it's a major challenge. I mean, he'll be the first president to really start making policy and addressing the issue in the post-disclosure era. But if we don't get disclosure before the inauguration day, then this whole thing hangs over the administration. This unknown uncertainty, unresolved stuff that has to be sorted out.
Say what you want about Biden and anyone, that would certainly put his name as a legacy maker for history of America.
But
he's one, but he'll do it. Biden will do it.
It's not that important. It just is that if we get the hearing during the transition period, Biden gets the disclosure, he gets to make the announcement, and then he gets to retire, basically. The new president takes over. So that is the much more responsible way. It's, I think, going to be less disruptive, and we get it done. Now, if that doesn't happen, and what can I say? The Senate, the Democratic run Senate, or don't be make it partisan. The inability to get that hearing obviously is difficult. They have not been able to do it. But if they don't, then it goes to the next administration. So Biden comes in on the 20th of January. I believe that we would then get disclosure under Trump, rather, in the first 60 days. So we'll take it to essentially the end of March. That's why I'm saying 4.5 months.
Right.
Now, why do I say that? Here are the reasons. One, as it happens, President Trump has been asked about this issue more than any other president.
Right.
And probably more often than any president and presidential candidate. Though Hillary Clinton was asked about this quite a bit during her campaign. I don't know how many times, but it was a number of times. But I think he's equal or surpassed that. So this is nothing new. Now, he doesn't give broad responses. They tend to be fairly casual, it's not so much dismissive, but he doesn't just jump into the issue, but he says something. We know it's been brought up. That's right. The first. Second point. But as he got close to the election itself, recognizing, I think, clearly what's going on, he went further. And in the definitive interview with Joe Rogan, 3 hours, Rogan naturally picked up.
That was like on Mars. that was like a disclosure right there. He's like talking about in reference to aliens and UFOs. He automatically goes to, I don't see why there's no reason to think there's not any life on Mars. Kaboom, sir.
So he indicates that, he would release JFK files. He would release the UFO files. Again, not a lengthy statement, but what's important is that statement was made on Rogan's podcast, which, as of now, if you count all platforms, which includes, of course, his main platform, plus Spotify, plus, I don't know, there's a bunch of others. I think YouTube is already approaching 60 million. It's probably seen by 80, 90 million people. And that was not that long ago. And so this thing is now just sitting there. It's in play in a big way. That's the second reason. The third reason is that it's known that a number of the people around him have brought the issue up. And so there are people that are supporting this mildly, but they've brought it up. It's in play in the people around him. That's very significant. And then the fourth reason is that to what extent they followed through remains to be determined or reviewed, but the conservative Republican agenda has clearly included a desire to get at the deep state, that they call it, or get at the classified secret stuff and all possibly abuses of secrecy. Well, the ET issue is clearly an example of that, and so it fits right into that particular part of their agenda. So you put all that together, and then you add the fifth thing, which is the president-elect is a man who will do whatever the hell he wants, even when he's told not to do it. That is not Biden. That is not Clinton. And so I think that I can make that makes a really strong case to me that barring something happening again, like if a nuke is used in Ukraine, that's going to divert everything. If China decides to make a bold move at Taiwan, that's going to divert everything. But assuming nothing like that happens, I could see disclosure in the first 60 days of the new administration. Now, what kind of disclosure? Well, if anybody in the administration asks me for my advice, which I'm pretty sure they will not do, I would say, okay, we still have to have that Senate hearing. These witnesses need to have an opportunity to testify in a major platform. Your party now is in control of the Senate, and you have a Senate chairman of the Intel Committee. I mean, a Republican chairman of the Intel Committee. So, encourage them to have that hearing. Tell the new chairman that he can't force him, separation of powers, but just encourage him. Look, I really would like you to get that hearing going, get those witnesses in. So they hold the hearing in the Senate, the one we've always wanted, and it's conducted very early in the new administration, and then that tees up the new president, to come forward to the White House in the East Room and say, yeah, look, I said I was going to get it out. There it is. We're not alone. And we've got this and we've got that. And you want to know more. That's disclosure. And he is the disclosure president. And he, of course, will be the first president to address the post-disclosure issues.
Right.
But
well, something must be done because a point that I got a takeaway from that was how they're not making themselves secret. It's like they're going out of their way to be seen, like they're prodding us, saying, "All right, get moving start start talking." Do you think that falls into play on behalf of the otherworldly or whatever intelligence of the mind, let alone person behind it, wants it to go? Do you think that could be an issue to make these hearings happen more?
Independent of the processes that I'm discussing, the ETs have their own thing, and they certainly have been helping this along. There's lots of sightings, particularly these rather unusual drones, what they call drone swarms over ships and secure facilities, which is really quite amazing. So yeah, it's possible that what they're doing is definitely helping move this forward. But I don't know for sure. I want to focus on the human element here. And so, as I said,
free to speculate,
happening in the first 2 months of the Trump administration. However, there's a lot of ways it could go down, and some ways I think are better than others. I've described what I would advise them to do, but they could take another way. In other words, Trump doesn't have to have a hearing. He doesn't have to wait for hearing in any committee. He can walk into the East Room of the White House and just tell all the reporters there that, yeah, we're not alone, right? We got this, we got that.
That's
maybe
true.
Evidence, maybe he doesn't. But obviously, everybody is going to know the evidence is there. And so in due course, it'll easily come out. And so this is a unilateral disclosure. It's not the best way to go. My biggest concern there is a unilateral disclosure event by Trump himself. Other heads of state may not be so willing to come forward. They may hold back because they're without the substantive supported material. And not that he couldn't bring some of that out. They may say, well, we're not sure. Whereas if you have that hearing in front of the Senate and then the president comes forward, the other heads of state will be jumping in immediately within days. And so that's what I would advise them. Don't do some unilateral thing. You get the Senate to do its job, or it could be the Senate Intel or Armed Services, either one. Nothing against the House, but the Senate is the upper chamber. It has fewer members. Each member has more influence, and everybody knows that hearings at that level have a little more gravitas. So there you have it. You know what? I'm saying disclosure by the end of March looks pretty good to me.
All right. So if he does do that, though, and those that are like saying they don't want these hearings to happen, don't mention certain things, and if Trump comes out and does that, like you said, that would be a big benefit. But what do you think it would be that then again a transparency of getting these issues at least accessible to the public to a tenth or larger than a tenth of a degree? Granted, we can't know everything for obvious reasons, and should be withheld. But there's so much that we need to be brought up to speed about. You know what I mean? What do you think that they are going to do?
Look, I'm talking about disclosure.
Right.
Confirmation.
But it's one disclosure that are in control of this. That's the issue.
Capital D disclosure is the door to everything else. Until we get capital D disclosure, we're going to spin our wheels forever. And so once we get capital D disclosure, you can expect a huge flurry of media, interest and engagement, hundreds, if not thousands of stories around the world, articles, what have you. Then we have to deal with the UAP Disclosure Act. So we have a Disclosure Act on the books, but it's missing a lot of important pieces. They ultimately did not get that act. They were going to resubmit the act as it was, the full act. This time it didn't make it in. So it's not going to be law as of the end of this year. Now they can introduce a more robust or a complete UAP disclosure bill at any time, right? They could do it. The new Congress could do it in January. That would be the right thing to do. Again, they pretty much figured out the right way to do this. The question is, are they going to do it though? And so, hopefully, there will be the UAP Disclosure Act in full form in place, right? when President Trump discloses. Now, that will not be the case unless they run a standalone bill through quickly in December. I don't expect that. But again, it could be done at any time. So, but they don't need that for a December event during the transition. But for Trump, it would be helpful if they got that bill done, passed that, so that the bill is the method by which everything comes out. Disclosure by the president is the trigger that sets all of that in motion. Now, there are a few things moving, but they're not particularly significant, but they are worthy. They have set up the UAP section of the archive. They are starting to put some things in it. Technically, things are moving from the military intelligence side into the archive, but it's very slow, and they don't have any powers. So having that bill means that after disclosure, that can accelerate, and you're going to start to see a steady flow of information going through the UAP disclosure process into the archives. In addition to that, witnesses are going to be coming forward, and there's going to be a slew of hearings. Every relevant committee in the Congress, and there's probably 20, and that including subcommittees, is going to want to hold a hearing. And so there's going to be hearings on top of hearings on top of hearings with dozens, if not hundreds, of witnesses coming forward or being asked to come forward. It's going to be an extraordinarily intense period in which huge amounts of information are coming out in several ways, including heading to the archives. And it's going to take several years before we have emptied out the secret world of the UAP reality as known by the governments of the world, particularly the United States. Will it be 2? Will it be 3? Will it be 4? Either way, as long as it's in process, as long as that's what's happening, people will be quite happy. They cannot dump it all out.
You seem real optimistic. You seem real optimistic, and excited, and fire burning under the ass type of thing. Moving on this, so obviously this question would be dumb. You only see a path forward now. There's no going back. We're not going back, right?
Well, they tried to push back when Grush came out. That didn't work. They attacked him. Didn't work. They tried to push back with this bogus Arrow study. It was like a desperation move. It didn't work. So no, I don't. Again, a nuclear war, we go back. But short of that, the process is only going forward. It's rolling down the mountainside like a snowball. So
now, if nuclear missiles were to launch anywhere, and by them doing the things that they did, obviously we'll know if they're friend or foe, because then they'll shut them all off or destroy them. If that showing us that capability was to say, hey, you're not going to launch no more nukes, we don't care.
What if they don't shut them down after we launch them?
Well, then we could know that might be part of their plan too. I mean, but those are things that we have to adapt to.
Well, it certainly means that they deliberately didn't do it. But are we going to blame them? I'm not going to blame them. It's our stupidity. We've been heading towards that for a long time. So I'm not worried. I'm not going to think much about what the ETs may do in that regard.
Do you think them shutting them off at the various bases around the world now was just a show of force, saying, hey, we're intelligent, we're real, you don't freak out, but hey, we're about to shut you down, we can turn you on and on?
Simple answer, no. Most of the witnesses feel the same. It was a message. It was a message to us. Now, whether we receive that message, we'll see. But it was a message. It wasn't a threat. It was a message. What are you doing with the nukes? And you're going to have to address that. So that's a message. Now, obviously, if we launched them and they turned them off, that would be more than just a message. But again, I can't get there. We need to simply get a confirmation from the head of state. It's not that hard. It's never been that hard. And if we can't do that, we don't deserve to have the damn missiles turned off. Blow ourselves up to hell, wait a couple of thousand years, they'll come back and see how we're doing. But that's where it's at right now. That's my projection. I got to go. I've got another interview in about 3 minutes. But we covered it well.
I think it's up to the disclosure of what we're seeing right there, too. You know what I'm saying? All this is connected. Therefore, they should be able to come out on what we're really seeing there instead of them. NASA wants, a big part of this and a big part of the money, be a part of it. But yet, they're not transparent. They deliberately lie to us about our friend right there. They're going to be wearing a lot of egg on their face because the UFO bone's connected to the Mars bone. You cannot just have this disclosure and not of what the hell we're looking at here. Thank you very much, Stephen, for being on, and definitely for your time. You're rocking, and I look forward to further shows. And as this continues on, or if you have something you want to bring up, you want to come on about, please let me know, sir. We love you here.
Yeah, a lot's going to happen in the next 30 days. So let's touch base again in 30 days, see where we are.
All right, sir. You
All
have
right,
a
Gary.
good night. And thanks for the fight for us all, my brother.
All right. Bye.
So there you go, everyone. Stephen Bassett. We were really lucky to get him on. Again, he's had a busy week, so the importance of that hearing. Obviously, I give my thoughts about it. That picture kind of sums it up all to me. But on the other hand, Stephen knows the politics of what could actually stitch these things to become in reality, and the slow progress, like he said, of where and how this unfolds. And this is certainly unprecedented, but now we're at the cusp. We're marching to the new revolution of the Martian revelation. Now we can make our fate, and either way, an end to the heavens. So I think on that note, there was some news articles I was going to get into, but I'll read it next week. Hopefully next week at a show. We got to start the shows going up again, but I do got to complete the book, The Faces of Mars Beyond Mere Tricks of Light and Shadow. I look forward to that. Hopefully early at the beginning of next year. I don't know yet. I'm worried about getting the product done first before starting to worry about publishing and all that shit. But it's all relevant. And like you can see right above my head there, of our friend in Cydonia, again, NASA manipulates and lies. They're not transparent. They put the stigma on much of this shit, more so than anything else, especially the UFOs. And now they're in there grasping their hands forth. Please give us money. Fuck you, NASA. Why? Well, I'll just say this, because I'm an alien.
Have you ever felt left out of the group, excluded, given the boot when you knew you should have been a shoo-in? Like some ancient druid was pursuing to ruin your life with a curse, but worse, he brought his whole damn crew in. And now it's high noon and you're a target to shoot in. His school's a battlefield, no wonder you're truant. They always look at you and they boo at what you're doing, and you go off like a bomb at the Olympics in Munich. Nah, you're just an extraterrestrial, less than respectable. You'll never get the gift, girl. You're just a jester at the festival. I guess it's acceptable to peg your head with vegetables and kick you in the testicles, and best of all, let you know that you're a filthy dog and you'll never be best in show. So why the abuse? Cause all a bully needs is a fucking excuse. Planet Earth, I need a friend, cause I'm on the outside looking in. I'm an alien, I'm just an alien. Feeling lost but never found, till I find myself being pushed around. I'm an alien, yes I'm an alien. I'm an alien. I'ma be honest, it gets better, I promise. So don't let them ground you down to a pound of sawdust. Stay on stage the longest till the gong hits and everybody comments on their fondness of your polish and your overall knowledge. Remain calmest and abolish your modesty, cause honestly you gotta be positive you're a prodigy. Just show the world that you're not one to mess with. It's a broken home to make these bastards aggressive. You can expect to get rejected, neglected, stripped naked, and tested until they reckon. You feel terrible, cause nothing is comparable. Violence ain't the answer, but the pain is unbearable. You're nice and jaded from being isolated. Now you coast through life feeling twice as hated. So why the abuse? Cause all a bully needs is a fucking excuse. Planet Earth, I need a friend, cause I'm on the outside looking in. I'm an alien, I'm just an alien. Feeling lost but never found, till I find myself being pushed around. I'm an alien, yes I'm an alien. I'm an Axel on the drums. I'm an